Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the August 29th Planning Commission for the County of Ventura. Would you please join me for the flag salute, which is behind me, I believe. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to ask everybody to turn off their cell phones, please. It can be very disruptive. Also, if you intend to speak and haven't submitted a speaker card, please give one to the clerk, okay? And if you are parking in a restricted area, watch the time. They will ticket you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Commissioner McGee?
Here.
Commissioner Onstadt?
Here.
Commissioner Wessner?
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Here. We don't have any minutes, do we? No, nothing new. Yeah, the first item is a consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept as presented, including Exhibit A that's been added.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the first and only item for business remaining is LU 11-0030, appellant request that the Planning Commission grant their appeal of Planning Director's approval of conditional use permit LU 11-0030 for the proposed operation and maintenance of a paintball and airsoft sports park. May we have the staff report, please?
Chair Onstadt, I believe that you still have agenda item number 4, public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, got ahead of myself. Well, as corrected, this is a time reserved in the meeting for public comment for matters that are not on calendar. Does anybody wish to speak? Seeing none, we will move to staff presentation. I'm going to move. He's being trying to go. It's okay. That's fine. Just stay there.
Back up one slide.
Okay. Chair Onstadt, Commissioners, Christina Rosari, Planning Staff. Before you today is a appeal of Planning Director approved conditional use permit number LU 11-30, which is for a paintball and airsoft sports park in the Moore Park area. To orientate yourself with the site, we have a vicinity map. The site is located in the Moore Park unincorporated area, adjacent to Shackle Road and near the intersection of Shackle and Broadway. The project site is zoned open space 20 acres and open space 10 acres minimum lot size. It has a general plan designation of open space, and the project site is located at 8643 Shackle Road in the Moore Park area. The parcel size is approximately 57 acres, and the CUP size is approximately 1.97 acres in size. Surrounding uses include agricultural uses, and there is a residence. The nearest residence is located 1,700 feet from the project site. And this is just an aerial photo of the site, and to show the project area inside the red rectangle. This is the site plan, and to show you where the actual playfield areas are, there's 8 of them. So, sorry about that. So the playfield areas are to playfield areas 1 and 4 are at the northern portion of the project site. Playfield areas 5 to 7 at the southern portion, and an arena with parking is located at the eastern portion of the site. And here we have the parking entrance to the eastern portion of the site. So to better see the site and the playfield areas, I've color-coded the site plan for you. The playfield areas and arena are in turquoise, and the parking is in purple, with the access road to the site from Shekel Road is in orange. So the applicant requested a CUP for a paintball and airsoft sports park, and this is an allowed use under the non-coastal zoning ordinance under sports and athletic facilities without night lighting. The applicant proposed to have 116 event days per year, and this is predominantly on the weekend, with 102 weekend events and 14 weekday events. The weekday events would be with holidays and through reservation only. And they also propose to have a maximum of 250 participants each business day, 130 parking spaces, and 10 employees. There are temporary structures on the site. There's 3 storage bins, and there are temporary structures involved with the actual play portion of the paintball park, and those are temporary. So a negative declaration was prepared pursuant to the CEQA guidelines and the county initial study guidelines, and a public comment period was from December of last year to January of this year, and on the dates above, and also from January 20th of this year to February 20th. And the second date field was due to a procedural oversight with the noticing, so the second time around we noticed everybody involved in the project. And so the negative declaration concluded that there would be less than significant impacts to the environment. So in the decision to approve the project at the planning director level, the project was heard at the Agricultural Policy Advisory Committee 2 times, on August 17th of last year and of April 11th of this year. The Agricultural Policy Advisory Committee recommended approval of the project and also recommended approval of additional conditions that were created in conjunction with the Agricultural Commissioner's Office and the Planning Division. And those conditions are found in the final set of conditions under the Agricultural Commissioner section. The Agricultural Commissioner and the Planning Director, as well as myself, went on a site visit to the site, and we also put some conditions in the project from the applicant's approved paintball and airsoft sports park in LA County. And those are taken from his CUP that he has from LA County. So the Planning Director made the decision on May 29th, 2012 to approve the project, and she approved the project with 104 event days per year, and this is a reduction from the 116 that the applicant proposed. So there will be 94 weekend events and 10 weekday events and holiday events by reservation only, and still with a maximum of 250 participants and 130 parking spaces as well. So this decision was appealed on June 6th of this year. So to better orientate yourself with the site, here are some site photos. To the left, we have the playfield area, the view of that from the parking area, and we also have the Shekel Road with the entrance to the site on the bottom portion of the screen. And this is the actual entrance to the site off Shekel Road, on the top portion of the screen. And this is the western property line. And that would be where playfield areas 1 to 4 and 5 to 7 are. So the appeal request. The appellants appealed the decision, and they are requesting that you deny the CUP. So the appellant submitted 6 grounds of appeal. So I'm going to go through the grounds of appeal and note some points why staff believes that the appeal should be, the CUP should be upheld. So first ground of appeal is that the ND did not properly analyze the impacts resulting from the demolition and removal of almost 8 acres of paving on adjacent properties and in the surrounding area. To the contrary, the project description submitted by the applicants states that the temporary stockpiling of the materials will occur on site during site preparation, and they'll actually be transported to Grimes Rock, which is just north of the project site, and no public roads will be used to transport the material. Also, the concrete material will be recycled. That's also in the project description. And for the conditions of approval for the project, the Air Pollution Control District has required them to submit an air emissions minimization plan for dust control. This is condition 54 of the project, and that will require them to be in compliance with the APCD rules and regulations regarding dust control, including having a water truck on site. Ground of appeal number 2, the ND did not properly analyze the project impacts resulting from the traffic, including additional vehicle traffic and safety of the intersections on adjacent properties and neighborhoods. After my presentation, we have a staff member from the Transportation Department here to address any concerns you have that I've not covered regarding traffic issues. But staff have found that the impacts on the surrounding road and the surrounding intersections is minimal. This is based on Transportation Department reviewing the letters of August 2nd and August 9th that the appellant's attorney had submitted as part of your appeal packet, and also based on their own information that they have from county records. And also the traffic volume and timing is determined not to be a safety hazard, and the congestion and impacts are minimal because traffic is not during peak hours. And ground of appeal issue number 3, the ND did not properly analyze agricultural impacts resulting from the proposed project. This includes, but is not limited to, impacts relating to dust generated by open fields and the impact on surrounding crops, impacts from runoff, and impacts from stray paintballs and on the agricultural workers. To the contrary, the paintballs are actually non-toxic and non-hazardous. They're actually edible. And runoff to the site drains from the interior, so there's no runoff from the site. And there's a 50-foot setback from the western property line, and the project has been conditioned to require mesh fencing along the western property line and parking areas. That's condition 3 of the project. And ground of appeal issue number 4. The ND did not properly analyze fire protection impacts resulting from the proposed project, and there is a lack of fire protection for the proposed project. To the contrary, there's no permanent structures on the site. The structures that are proposed are the 3 cargo containers and the small structures that are proposed to be used in a play area, such as wooden spools and small bunkers. And there's actually no increase in fire flow demand as a result of the project, and there's actually fire protection service and response times are adequate for the project, and this is based on a review from the Fire Protection District, as noted in the initial study. So, ground of appeal issue number 5. The ND did not properly analyze the project's impacts on adjacent properties from the paintballs, including potential water quality issues. We also have staff from the Watershed Protection District here to answer any questions you may have about water runoff and impacts to the groundwater. But I'd like to point out that, as I said before, the paintballs are non-toxic and runoff drains to the interior of the site. And based on the acreage of the site and the CEP area and the volume of fluid in the paintballs, which is very minimal, there's negligible annual volume of paintball fluid, so it would evaporate very quickly when the paintballs are distributed on the ground. And finally, ground of appeal number 6. The ND did not properly analyze the compatibility of the commercial paintball park in a rural residential area. As I said in the beginning of my presentation, the site has a zoning designation of open space as well as a land use designation of open space. In the non-coastal zoning ordinance, the use of this facility or this park is allowed in the open space zone. The project has been conditioned to require a 50-foot setback from the property line. That's the western property line. And the play fields are located 1,700 feet from the nearest residence. And notification of any upcoming events and all upcoming events would be required within 300 feet of the property. And also, as I said before, the structures are temporary and will be painted to blend in with the surrounding area. So staff conclusion. The MD was adequately evaluated and the project's potential impacts to the environment, and the required findings to grant the fee can be made, and the grounds of appeal are without merit. So staff recommends that you deny the appeal and uphold the planning director's approval of the CUP pursuant to the recommended actions that are on the screen and also in the section G of your staff report. So this concludes my presentation, and we have several staff members from the county here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. This time I'd like disclosures from the commissioners. I'd like to ask each planning commissioner to state for the record whether or not he or she has received any oral or written ex parte communication regarding this agenda item that is not already contained in the record before us on this matter. Please disclose the substance of that information only if that information is not contained in the record before us in this matter. Paul?
No disclosures.
Michael?
As a resident of Moore Park since December 1982, I've cruised past this property countless times. I've heard all the different projects that have been proposed that are represented in the staff report. So I'm very familiar with the site, though I did not specifically visit the site for this purpose, nor have I received any other ex parte communication.
Richard?
I also have a long-term familiarity with that particular site, including during the days when I guess the Egg City operation was active at that location. I have not been past the site recently, however.
I have no disclosures. Are there any questions of staff at this time?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
My question would be, as far as conditions 49 and 50 of the pesticide use and operations, if do you feel comfortable, or would you like me to ask somebody else to answer that question? It has to do with the scheduling of use of pesticides by the growers and the ceasing of operations. Would you like, is there somebody else that would, Head Commissioner? Would you feel comfortable, sir? I'm trying to answer, but I don't know the question. Okay, well, all right. It's very specific. 49 and 50 require the local growers and the paintball applications as far as when scheduling pesticide applications, okay, to schedule that. Given prevailing winds and all the other issues I know tend to be involved when you spray, how much time prior and how much time post, is that something that you would recommend? Because it's not specific in the conditions. In other words, 24 hours prior, 48 hours after. So we don't want to have people that are using the facility be subject to the pesticide. So I would just want to get a feel what kind of time frame would be in scheduling the applications of pesticides.
I'll need to refer to the section.
If you like, I can read it for you.
Please.
Okay. Item number 49, scheduling a pesticide application. Permittee shall establish regular communications with a schedule of neighboring adjacent growers that allow for scheduling of pesticide applications and paintball facility operations. For communications to occur, the permittee must provide the following contact information to the adjacent growers: home phone, business phone, office phone, cellular phone, email, and other contact information that will follow. Item 50. When the permittee is notified of a scheduled pesticide application, the permittee shall notify the Agricultural Officers Commission of the scheduled application and its completion. The permittee must then arrange that all paintball facilities activities either do not occur during the time or occur in playing fields farthest from the property, separating the adjacent growers and the paintball facility. So my question to you is, you would dictate how much pre and post time of the spraying? I'm trying to get a feel for that.
No, the onus is on the permittee. In this case, is the property operator, not the grower. The grower has to do what they have to do in the allowed window that they have. Sometimes it's very short window because of wind and other factors. So it's the neighboring paintball facility that's going to have to vacate, and they're going to have to work around the grower's treatment schedule, whatever that is, because when you got to treat, you got to treat. So it's the onus is really on the paintball facility and not on the grower.
Okay, but the grower would give them, again, like I know, heat, humidity, wind, all of that impacts the pesticide. So the grower would then say, we recommend 48 hours prior to starting the use of the facility?
I don't believe we gave that type a specific time that the grower would have to inform the paintball facility operator of when to leave. In many cases, these applications can be done on a schedule or routine basis, and so there's plenty of time for the paintball operator to close down the facility. There may be an occasion, though, where there's not a lot of time and treatment is critical for protection of the crop, and there'll be much less time. I can't tell you exactly how much that is, but there'll be less time. I'm certain that the growers are working with pest control advisors that will be in communication with the growers so that when it's time to schedule an application, it's generally the day before, they'll have sufficient time to give the paintball facility operator a call, and they're just going to have to close down.
Okay, thank you.
Even with very short notice.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, sir. So we're imposing an obligation on the adjacent farmers to notify the operator that they're going to spray. Is that correct? That's what I hear you saying.
For his own protection, yeah.
For whose own protection?
For everybody's protection, for the grower's protection from liability, and for the paintball facility and their customers. But the law, there's other laws at play here that I regulate, and that is in regards to pesticide use. You cannot drift over into another person's property without their knowledge and consent, which would be the case here. So, preempting all of this, they can't drift over anyway. This is just as an additional precaution to keep the liability for the grower and the health and safety of the paintball operator and their customers safe. It's just communications is all that this is requiring.
I understand what you're saying, but we're talking about just about every weekend in the year. And what kind of impact this will have on the applicant, I have no idea. But
I'm certain that
without some power to force the adjacent farmers to notify these people, how is the applicant operate a business that's going to be shut down on short notice? I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me. I guess the question all goes back to compatibility of high density use with ag, which is a struggle everywhere. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Any more questions this time?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Who am I talking to?
I don't know.
We talked about. I heard you talking about drainage, and I read that that particular parcel, everything drains into the middle, and I guess into some kind of channel. Where does that channel go? It's got to leave the property somewhere.
Watershed Protection here to answer that question for you.
Good afternoon. My name is Evelina Mutkowska. I'm County Stormwater Program Manager. This drainage that's located in the middle of the site property drains into the drainage along the Shekel Road. And as a part of our review, we placed conditions to make sure that this drainage is protected from residue paintballs.
And how does that work?
So we've got a condition for making sure that potable restrooms and trash bins are away from the drainage channel. And let me see, we've got conditions that require stormwater runoff protection plan and this will detail housekeeping measures to ensure that the drainage channel remains free of trash paintball markers and excessive accumulation of sediment. This plan will include schedule for sweeping or raking of any trash or debris within the channel or adjacent areas after each event, or when any trash or sediment accumulates in the channel. The plan shall include scheduled channel inspections to ensure inspections to ensure the length of the channel is free of trash and sediment prior to rainy season, which is before October 1st annually, and then monthly during wet season between October 1st and April 30th. The plan shall also ensure that any washing of play areas shall be conducted in a manner that wash water or spent paint markers are not flushed into the drainage channel and that trash bins are kept covered. We also placed conditions to design for the physical barrier to make sure that the airborne paintballs are not do not enter this channel as well.
What would that physical barrier look like? Some kind of mesh itself, or?
We left it up to the applicant to design, but that's what we thought, that probably a mesh might be a good idea.
Thank you. Also a question regarding fencing. We'll talk too about that. The fence around the parking lot is I guess a 12-foot fence mesh, I understand.
Yes.
On the west side where the orchard lands are, it's 6 feet.
Yes.
And I assume that the 12-foot is there to protect people and cars and whatever that's going on there. I guess with a 6-foot fence with a mesh with a 50-foot setback, I figure that's high enough. Is that what? I mean, how far does a paintball go? You shoot it parallel to the ground. How far does it go? Do we know?
In previous discussions with the applicant, I believe the applicant has stated that it goes about 30 feet from the point of where they shoot the paintball from.
Okay. Now, they're going to be using portable toilets and that kind of thing, but I guess there is water on the site.
Yes.
And they've got to filter the water truck and so forth. Yes. But that's not going to be used by the public per se.
No.
All right. Now, I noticed in the, I don't know what's in the CUP, I think it was, there's 24,000 square feet of unengineered artificial turf. Where does that go? Is that in all the play areas?
The artificial turf is going to go in an arena just north of the parking area, and
the purple area.
The purple area is the parking area, and the pointer's not working, but the small rectangular area right above the parking area is the arena.
And what's the arena for?
Just another play area.
Okay. The rest will be dirt, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I guess I do have one other clarification question for me. I'm not real familiar with paintball. What's airsoft? Is that the gun or something?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. One more time. Do we have something that depicts the overall area, broader in scope? One of the issues here is compatibility with surrounding properties. Is that the widest angle you have?
The widest angle we have.
Could you describe in some detail north, south, east, and west? What's there?
North of the site is just open space, and the 3 Grimes Canyon mines are.
How far is that from the project?
I do not know the exact number. We can get that.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add, at the very top of this picture that you see in front of you, that's actually a portion of the Grimes Rock facility. So just at the very top of this photograph is the Grimes Rock mining facility.
How do they access that project? Do you know where the public access is?
Public access
For Grimes?
To the sand and gravel operation.
That's off Highway 23 on the other side of the property.
Okay.
And actually, a project that'll be coming for you later is where they're going to have a road that's going to come through this photograph to another spot on Highway 23.
Okay. And describe the property to the west, which appears to be an orchard.
Yeah, west, south, and east of the site is orchard.
West, south, and east?
Mm-hmm.
Does the open space ordinance specifically provide for paintball parks, or is that somebody's interpretation?
It includes recreational facilities, and it's an unlit recreational facility, which is what this is.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions of staff at this time?
Yeah, I just have one more clarification question. This parcel that's surrounded by the boundary, that's all of that is the original Lake City?
Yes.
And now they're talking about leasing, what was it?
21.97 acres would be the CEP area.
Okay. But then 57 acres total. But that looks like a lot more than 57 acres.
Well, that's just the parcel involved. There's...
Because there's two parcels.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Christina, before you leave, approximately how far from the intersection is the entrance to this proposed activity off of Shekel Road?
I don't have the exact number, but probably the transportation department could answer that for you.
Is someone here from transportation? Could you come up, please, sir, and introduce yourself, give your address?
My name is Richard Herrera. I'm with the Transportation Department. And the entrance, I don't know exactly how far it is. I would guesstimate that it's a couple of thousand feet from 23, and then maybe 3/4 of a mile from Broadway.
Yeah, so the line of sight from 23 to the entrance is, you say, a couple thousand feet approximately?
That's my estimate, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else? No? All right, now we'll hear from the applicant. Kate Nieswander.
This is the appellant.
Appellant, excuse me.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate Nieswander, and I represent the appellants. The appellants are all neighbors of the project site, all farmers with active production agriculture, lemons, avocados, row crop. They live and work on these properties, as they will tell you in the next few minutes. I want you to remember three things as you listen to these farmers. The first one is that while the project may be zoned correctly for a paintball park, this is wholly incompatible with the surrounding properties. Incompatibility is reviewed by your commission de novo, as you know. No deference to the decision of the planning staff. If you allow this project to go forward, you will be allowing an amusement park right next to someone's house and next to crops that are very sensitive to blowing dust and sand. The second issue, the project would demolish between 6 and 8 acres of concrete. That concrete's been out there for decades. It was the base of the Egg City operation. The staff report totally misses the point on this issue. They focus on dust from the demolition, not the long-term impacts. They talk about 3 times a day of watering. That's for construction only, not for day-to-day operations. These are the conditions 54 and 55. Those are construction conditions. They do not apply day after day when there's nobody on site playing paintball and an 80-mile-an-hour wind whips up that canyon, which happens fairly often, as you're going to be hearing from the neighbors. With the concrete there in place, the wind could not pick up the dust and sand and blow it onto the adjoining properties. Once the concrete is gone, nothing is going to prevent the constant winds in that area from picking up tons of dirt and dust and blowing it onto the lemon orchards and onto the rows of blueberries. These crops are highly sensitive to dust, and these will cost these farmers hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in crop losses. You're going to hear more on this issue in just a few minutes. In addition, there are questions of runoff and erosion from the newly exposed soil, and there could be microbes in that soil uncovered for the first time in 50 years. On the question of where the drainage goes, while some of it may go into Shekel Road, the fact is that there are 3 retention basins and 3 drainage points on that site that go directly onto Mike Plater's property. Mike has a farm directly to the south. And adjacent to Mike is the Cusimano property, and then up to the west is the Waters property. There's blueberries there, and then the Fry property. All these people in production agriculture. The third thing I want you to think about as you're listening to the neighbors talk is the traffic questions. This is not a case where the level of service is going to be affected. The issue is the safety of the intersections in a rural community. The staff report says there have been no collisions there in the past, so there will be no collisions there in the future. But you have in front of you a traffic study from ATE, Associated Transportation Engineers, well-respected firm, and in it, engineer Dick Poole, says the intersections that access this site are inadequate for the traffic, and he concludes that a formal study is necessary. At Shekel and Broadway, the line of sight for that intersection does not meet Caltrans specifications. In fact, the line of sight is about 250 feet, and Caltrans says it should be 550 feet. At the intersection of the Shekel and Grimes, which is primarily where your traffic's going to be coming in, there's no left turn pocket that would accommodate the 270 vehicle trips a day coming to this site. There might not have been accidents in the past, but these new trips, 270 a day, at an intersection where the line of sight is less than half what it's supposed to be, or where there's no left turn pocket, that's just dangerous. Now, the neighbors will be giving you a lot more information on these points and a few others. We thank you for your consideration, and if I could, I'd like to come up and spend a few minutes with you at the end of this to try to wrap this up. Thank you very much. That would be my other opportunity I would request, yes. Thank you.
Gary, is it Cusimano? I probably butchered that. Gary, how do you say your last name?
Pardon?
Your last name, pronounce it for me.
Cusimano. 4 syllables.
State your address, please.
25769 Laurel Oak Court, Valencia. My wife and I own the property directly south of this particular project on Shekel Road. We've been there since 2005. I'd like to comment on a couple of things. One is compatibility, and the other is traffic, which has already been commented on, but I'd like to go into a little more detail. We are out in the middle of a production agricultural area. This property is surrounded by lemons, avocados, berries, rangeland, and a couple of other things which escape my mind right now. The activities in this area include growing, irrigating, harvesting, farming in total, agricultural properties. The people that frequent this area are either landowners who are the actual farmers on the property, employees of these particular properties, harvest crews, and the like. What we're inviting into our area, if in fact this particular project is approved, is a recreational operation. And while it may qualify or may meet all of your technical requirements,
as a operation which is legal, from a compatibility point of view, what we're doing is we're inviting the public into an area that is a production agricultural area. And there's quite a difference. What we're inviting into the area are people who are coming for recreation. We're talking about soccer moms with Suburbans full of kids coming into our area who don't understand what's going on within the production agricultural entities, area out there. And so it's very difficult for me to see how your staff can say that this particular operation is compatible to what's going on next to it. You brought up a little earlier pesticides, pesticide spraying, etc. These are activities that go on all the time, weekdays, weekends, nights. You know, when it's time to spray, it's time to spray. And to burden us with the requirement to work with this particular operation who brings the urban public to the area who don't understand what it is we're doing, makes it very difficult for me to understand how that's compatible with what we have. The second area I'd like to comment on is traffic. I'm amazed at the traffic report that's come out. The fact that there's been no accidents on Shekel and Broadway for the last 10 years, to me, is highly irrelevant. I just came from that intersection. I guarantee you, you have to get into the eastbound lane of Broadway to see if anybody's coming from going west on Broadway. You have to do that. There's no possible way to see what's coming unless, so what you do is you pull up to the intersection, you look left to make sure nobody's coming from the east to the west. If nobody's coming, you move out so that you can see if anybody's coming from the west going east. Now, historically, and I think if you went out there and tested it, 99% of the people using that intersection today are farmers, local farmers, their employees, harvest crews, and people who know that intersection. What we're talking about now is inviting a totally different type of individual out to an area that they're totally unfamiliar with. We're talking about a soccer mom with a suburban load of kids who's going to come to that intersection, who has no experience. They're accustomed to driving in intersections where you have stop signs, you have visibility, setbacks, and all those kinds of things. This is not the situation out there. And so what we're going to have is we're going to have an accident waiting to happen. And I think that's totally inappropriate if we're going to go forward with this, if you choose to go forward with this particular operation. It's just not appropriate to go forward without at least a condition that improves that intersection. So having said those two things, and coming back one more comment on compatibility, I have to say, if this was anything else, a citrus packing facility, a berry packing facility, an agricultural wash facility, anything like that, I guarantee I wouldn't even be up here talking to you. Because to me, those are compatible kinds of activities that belong in this particular area. This particular application, unfortunately, at least in my mind, doesn't fit. So I thank you for your attention.
Stay there, sir, just a moment, please. Anybody have questions? I have a couple questions. Does the sand and gravel operation in any way impact your immediate area? Do they access it off different highways? One of the questions, obviously, is compatibility that you're raising. We have, obviously, a heavy use up in the sand and gravel operation. There was, obviously, Julius Goldman's Egg City there for years, and that was an intense use. So the question is, what is compatible and what isn't?
Egg City would be a hard one to argue. It's production agriculture. Again, it comes back, the types of individuals who would be frequenting that particular Egg City operation were employees, owners, farmers.
Well, that was a pretty intense traffic use.
Pretty intense. But again, it's not urban public coming out to a production agriculture. It's agricultural people coming to an agricultural type of operation. There's a big difference in the understanding of what's going on out there. And so I see a big difference between something like Egg City and something like this.
Are you impacted by the sand and gravel operation?
Yes, not to the extent that it's troublesome, because you're not bringing 260 or whatever the number is of people out there on one day. The level of service is not the issue on Shekel Road. I mean, I could go on about Shekel Road. There's an area at Shekel Road where if you go off the road 3 feet, you're in the ditch. I mean, it's there. And if you looked at the study to the extent, I think it's in the study if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm concerned about people coming to the area who don't understand a production agricultural type situation, and who have no experience whatsoever driving in those kind of conditions.
Thank you, sir. Andy Waters. I thought Andy, is it Waters?
Sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Andy Waters. I'm a grower, neighbor to the facility.
State your address, sir, please.
I live at 10500 Broadway Road, Moore Park, California.
Thank you.
My concern with this facility was obviously the bare ground that'll be on, I think it's fields 1 and 4, right adjacent to our baby lemon trees.
Excuse me, Andy.
Yes.
Where in relation to the site are you located?
If you look at Shekel that comes down to the corner, we're in the lower, left-hand corner, and just where it says OS 20, directly to the left of that on the map.
You're in adjacent property.
Yes, we border that on 2 sides. And that's what my concern is, that property when the wind blows and it's Tuesday night at 2 in the morning and the wind's blowing 80 miles an hour and you have an open dirt field that's non-maintained with any sort of vegetation or concrete. Obviously there's a sand mine right there, that's very coarse material, and when it blows into the trees it's devastating. So that's my main concern. Gary brought up everything else. Regarding the spraying, there's a little miscommunication there with the Ag Commissioner and whatnot. When we spray a material that has to be registered as danger or a pesticide, we need to put in a 2-week notice of intent to spray. We can spray anywhere within 12 hours of that, so forth. When we spray fertilizers and we spray for weeds and we spray for general maintenance of the trees, we don't need to put any notice of intent to anybody. So I would have to communicate with the site owner and tell them, hey, we're going to be out spraying fertilizer on the trees. If the soccer moms get drift on them, I would have to figure out a way to make that not happen because I cannot afford that sort of exposure. So that's the only comments I have. If there are any questions, I'd love to.
Yeah, I got the button. Andy, real quick, 2 things. First of all right, thank you for the 2-week notice. I appreciate that. I assume all the associated harmful effects, that information will be made available to the applicant user. But the real question now is this property's been abandoned for a period of time, so you've had these 80-mile-an-hour winds, and as I look at the photographs, not everything is concreted over, so you are getting some erosion and dust. How are you controlling that now?
Oh, it's native vegetation. Between those concrete slabs that's come up, that's all gone back to native. It's all, thistle and it doesn't blow. It doesn't move. If you look directly above that, there's a couple of fields that are open. That's up there. Our family leases that property from this property owner. We grow strawberries up there. So that goes to dirt, open dirt. This time of year, there's no strawberries there, so we plant a cover crop. We irrigate that up so that soil does not move onto our neighbor's property, so it doesn't erode. We've taken that mitigation so that doesn't happen. That's just good farming practice. But if you have a field there with nobody maintaining it.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Related to that, the property owner opted to take another route up there with the intent of moving that parcel, some part of the new parcel, back into ag. It would obviously require the removal of concrete.
Yeah, you're going to take out the concrete, you're going to plant an avocado tree, and then, the growth's going to come up, and that root ball, that avocado tree is going to hold that soil in there. You're going to be irrigating that so it'll have moisture in it. So when the wind blows on my neighbor's property, he's got his trees, it doesn't affect us, we don't affect him. Same situation.
So the assumption would be that it would need to be planted into some type of agriculture.
Well, my assumption with this property is they want to put, houses up here with trees around them or whatever they're going to do, and that's what we approved, and that's all been brought up. Not just that we have to keep coming back to the boards and explaining why we can't have a dump up here, why we can't have a rock crushing facility up here. We've made our thoughts. And my mom can speak better about this than I can because she's involved. But right now the way it sits, it doesn't create any problems. The mine that you're talking about is on the other side of the ridge. It doesn't affect us for sand blowing and whatnot. The trucks use 23. They don't come off shackled. So that the way it sits right now does not affect us whatsoever.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'm Cecilia Riddle, and I live at 8822 Grimes Canyon Road at the northeast corner of Grimes and Shekel, right across from the Egg City site. No, it's off the map on the right. It's actually probably quarter mile to the entrance of this from my driveway. No, that one's just to the south. But I'm sitting up on a hill. You might know my house. It's up on a hill there. It's the first house you get to when you're coming down the 23 towards Moore Park. And so I have a really great view point here of the highway, and I'm very, very familiar with the traffic going north and south on the 23. I've only lived here for the last year, my family and I, and so I've become familiar with driving these roads. One of my biggest concerns here is the safety of this particular intersection, and as well as the other two. Gary was talking about the Shekel and Broadway, which I have driven many times myself, and I have to verify that you must go out into the road in order to be able to see. At Grimes and Shekel, it's a fast road and it's very busy. This morning, I know this isn't primarily going to take place on weekdays, but I was up at 6:30 this morning counting cars going through that intersection, and I counted 60 trucks and cars within 1 minute. That goes on at rush hours both times of the day. They're going into Moore Park, they're coming back into Fillmore at 3:30 and to 6 or whatever it is. And they're going supposedly 45 to 50 miles an hour, but there's some slower trucks, farm trucks, there's semis, there's concrete trucks, there's all kinds of traffic. But those people primarily are, commuters, and they know the roads. So they know the area pretty well. The people that are going to be coming on the weekends, or the people that I see every weekend, are the boaters, the people that are towing their boats and their toys. They're motorcyclists, they're bicyclists, they're people out for Sunday drives, they're people that are coming into the area that aren't generally familiar with it. Very often from my window I can see cars pulled over to my mailbox, and it's a shoulder there where they can safely pull over, and they're on the phone because they're lost. They don't know where they are. They don't know how, if they go down the road a little further, they're not going to be able to turn around, and they won't maybe have cell service, so they're stuck. But I can see where if people are coming and trying to find this intersection to turn in down Shekel to go to this paintball park, they're going to have some difficulties because, first of all, there is no visible signage that indicates that it's Shekel Road. There's one sign on the southwest corner that is obscured by trees and a stop sign. So possibly the cars coming south can see that at the last second, but going north, there's no way. Second, they have to stop right there, and they've got cars behind them, and it takes a long lead time with a signal to get the cars behind you to slow. I know that from experience because every day I drive that road, and I have to be absolutely sure that I got my signal on way ahead of my turn and that people are actually slowing down behind me. So for someone sitting there, even if it's one car going in on hour instead of 37, they're sitting ducks right there because they just have to stop. And they may be stopping at the last second because there's no way to tell. There's no signage up ahead saying you're going to get the next intersection is going to be shackled. So I can see problems happening with that. A third problem that I've been subjected to, unfortunately, is cars trying to pass other vehicles. And they get to a place in the road just before that intersection, coming both directions, where that's where they're going to try to complete the pass. So even though I'll check when I'm coming out of my driveway that there's nothing going on, as soon as I make a turn to go out into the road, I could be faced with a car coming the other direction. I have to go into the dirt. And that's happened to me several times in the last few months. So it would be very difficult to project what kind of situations people can get into right at that corner without sufficient modifications. I just would be waiting for an accident to happen, some kind of accident, and I'm not really sure how many accidents it would take before something were to be done to alleviate that situation. So that's a big concern. And then the third intersection, and that's the one I'm sure most people will use. The third intersection is way down by the 23 where Broadway continues. There's a awkward intersection where the 23 is cars continue and go around a corner and go around a curve and continue going north. The southbound cars have a stop sign, and the eastbound cars have a stop sign. And for somebody coming down Broadway and looking for this other entrance, it's going to be difficult for them too. There's no way to tell that that's even Broadway that's continuing on the other, once they turn onto it. So I really think that there's going to be, that the report that came out minimizes a lot of these situations. I think that if anything, I'm not happy with the whole situation. I like paintball. I just don't think that it's appropriate to put in a neighborhood where we live and where we grow crops, and we have a whole other kind of a lifestyle. It just doesn't seem to me that it's the appropriate place to put this. So I would hope that you can listen to these concerns and do something proactive about it, or rethink the situation, or do some further studies on it to keep us from having all of these problems in the future. And that's it. Thank you. Okay.
My name is Patty Waters. I live at 10865 Broadway Road, Moore Park, California, 93021. I've lived there for over 40 years, and I can answer all of your questions probably, because I've stood before this group to fight dumps, trash dumps, recycling, grinding facilities, and so forth. And I'm going to give you just a little history, because we've spent tons of our time, tons of our money to try to keep this an agricultural area in Ventura County, because it's kind of this little area out here where the county doesn't really care, because they don't live there and they don't work there, and so they don't really kind of care what happens there. So it's really always befallen to all of us to keep coming before you. So when Judy Michaels was a supervisor, the owner of that land went to her and wanted to do something, and we were fighting it. So she said, let's solve this problem once and for all. And she asked the homeowners, the landowners. The landowner was somebody out of Bakersfield at the time. They're never local people, by the way. The ones that own it now are Beverly Hills. So he was out of Bakersfield. So he came. We met with Judy Michaels and her staff, county staff, and the property owners around it. And we said, how do we solve this problem? Well, we figured out what to do with this land that behooves the owner of the land at that time, that behooves the county to have something to work with, and gives us what we need so we don't have to keep coming before you and the Board of Supervisors and wasting all of our time. Because I'll tell you what, my son has a lot more to do today than to stand and waste his time here. So anyway, so we did. We spent at least 6 months working on this, and we came up with, okay, we'll give them a plot map, and it'll have 12 houses on it, and it'll have some setbacks for us, and those setbacks were supposed to be planted and growing and developed before they started. This isn't happening. Then the second one, and we as property owners were supposed to okay what was planted in there. The county had to okay it, and the property owners next door had to say that, yes, this was compatible with what we had. That's not happening. Second one is that, okay, so we gave them all these housing units to go in there, and some of them are pretty small, which makes them very, very valuable. Some of them are bigger, which makes them working farms. I think there's 2 or 3 that are one acre, and some 5 acres, or 10 acre, and maybe 2 40 acres, and then they had 160 acres that they can't do anything on because it lies right over the aquifer, and you can't do anything on that land. They agreed to all of that. And so we left, and we're going like, it's all over with. Well, it's not all over with, because now they don't really want to put the houses in right now because the market's a little bit low. So I'm just saying to you, it's like, okay, if they really want to do this, then give back what we all worked together on. Give back what the county worked on. Give back what the homeowners worked on, and the neighbors worked on. Dissolve that agreement, because that was the agreement to keep this kind of stuff from happening ever again. Now they want to come in and they say it's compatible because it's open space. No, a CUP means that you can do it if it's compatible. We know this isn't compatible. This is a recreational use. So it's not compatible. We're farmers. We grow crops. We feed people. They want people to drive in, shoot each other, and go away happy and fun. We don't do that. That's not compatible. So that's the history of that, just that part of it. So I'm saying to you, if county says that this is compatible and they want to grant the CUP, then I think they should lose that right to put the 12 houses in, because that's what we did as an organization of the county, of county staff and landowners, to come together so that we didn't have to do this every time, to waste your time and all the other stuff, because there's a lot going on in this county. So, second thing is, they say that there's been no accidents in 10 years. Well, I'm thinking that Egg City's been gone for about 25 years. But when Egg City was going and all the traffic was there that Egg City created, at the bottom of Shekel and Broadway, I was hit once. My 2 sons were in the back seat. My father-in-law was hit once. His wife was in the front seat with him. So you start putting more traffic in, especially on that road, because when you're coming down, it's a steep decline with a stop sign at the bottom. And there's no visibility, and they're going to be shooting through that stop sign and landing on our trees and on the neighbors' trees. And people are going to get hurt. There's big trucks that use Broadway through there all the time, huge semis hauling dirt and mulch and that kind of stuff going down that road all the time. And if they come through in one of those trucks and one of those cars collide, it won't be a pretty sight. Then I think it was last week, Andrew was picking up a bicycler off of the corner just off of us where Stockton and Broadway meet. And that was a guy coming down the road too fast on his bicycle. And they're going to be doing the same thing, coming down the road too fast. They've just left. They've all had a good time. They're not thinking about what they're doing. So the road situation concerns me. Second one is that if you go up 23 towards Fillmore, Wayne J. put in a road for trucks to use. He spent $1 million plus to put that road in. And this county and Caltrans made him put in a right turn lane for his trucks that want to turn right. Now we're asking people to turn left, and there is no left-hand turn lane. So why wouldn't we be putting in a left-hand turn lane? I just don't really get that one at all. Right turn's easy. The woman that spoke right before me, she talks about, being afraid of being rear-ended. She's turning right. She's not turning left on a place where there's no right-hand turn. And our agricultural commissioner and different people say, oh, it's compatible, but it's not their farms. It's not their farms. They're not the ones who have the, now you have 250 people and they see something being sprayed, and oh yeah, because our news media has everybody panicked about pesticides, they think everything that's being sprayed is a pesticide, and so then they get they get all their 250 people. That's 250 people a weekend, so you get them to sign the petition, and pretty soon we're way outnumbered. We have just a few of us because we've taken care of this land for over 100 years. My family's lived on this property for over 100 years, and it didn't look like this when we started. Egg City came in, asked my father-in-law, hey, I want to put in a little Egg City operation. He said, sure, you're a farmer. We said, fine, go ahead and do that. When I rebuilt my home, I didn't put windows in that open. It was very obvious why I didn't. I live below 2 million chickens, and it didn't smell very pretty. Never thought Egg City would go away. One day, the government paid them a lot of money to kill their chickens, and they went away. Now, we have all kinds of new things that just keep coming up and just keep coming up, and they're not compatible with what goes on out there. Let me look at my notes really quick and see if I can. Thank you. The last operation that went in, they came in, they put in their CUP papers, and Mike Slater, I read them, the other neighbors read them, and it said they were going to grow flowers, and then they were going to dry those flowers and make dried flower arrangements. Well, I'm like, hey, just like our other neighbor said, that's a farming operation. We're not going to stand here before you. Not one of us stood here before you and complained about that because it was a farming operation. Guess what? Their whole CUP was a lie. They planted flowers. They never harvested one. They brought in flowers from around the world, and they opened those boxes, and the ag department was there, and they saw bugs fly out of them all the time. Who knows? Thank God nothing really bad came out of those things. But they had at one time I know they had 25 fire regulations against them. This county never shut them down, never slowed them down, never did anything. But we, the neighbors, put up with all their traffic, all their trash, and our property, I think it was called the Shekel Fire. There was a pump on this property that wasn't maintained, and that pump got older and older, and in the wind, it blew over, and it started the fire. We lost 15 acres of avocado trees. We lost over 500 eucalyptus trees. We lost 7 years of production off of those avocado trees, and Mike Slater lost every avocado tree he owns. And it was because there was cardboard boxes that were outside that weren't tied down. And when the wind came, the fire came, it landed on those cardboard boxes, they started on fire, and Mike said it was just like little bombs landing all over my field. I couldn't fight them fast enough. Every time the wind blew, 10 bombs went off all around me, and I couldn't fight them fast enough. We were up there, all the neighbors were up there. We couldn't fight that fire. He lost every tree he owned. In this property, they're going to put in trash cans. Are they little boxes? Are they little brown boxes with stuff in them? And they're going to leave them there sitting all week and all weekend long? Because Christine talked about the wind. This is a little wind tunnel, and it's a very small wind tunnel, but we get yearly we get winds that reach 80 miles an hour, sustained winds at 80 miles an hour, gusting winds at 100 miles an hour. And if what they're building there isn't tied down really well, it's going to be knocking over my trees, it's going to be knocking over my wind machines, it's going to be landing in the ditches, it's going to be all over the place. And there's not going to be anybody there at midnight when the winds are blowing at 80 miles an hour. There's not going to be there anybody on Wednesday afternoon when the winds are blowing at 80 miles an hour. So it's not compatible. It's not a permanent operation. It's a fun little thing that could happen, and what's really sad is that they could put this a lot of places. Between here and Simi, between Simi and LA Ave, there's an entire west side that has nothing on it. It's not even farmland. It's simply grazing land, and there's nothing there. And it could go in any of those fields very simply, and it would be closer to highways, closer to roads and everything else. So to put it where we are just makes no sense. We struggle every year to maintain agriculture. There's I think it's less than 9% of this county is agriculture, but yet we're a huge business in this community we create the scenery that people love. We grow the food close to home. We provide fruit stands all over the place. We provide an atmosphere that can't be bought anyplace else. It doesn't exist in L.A. County, so of course L.A. County is going to put this in any place. They don't care. We're Ventura County. We have an agricultural community here that is struggling to stay alive. We struggle with the county on a daily basis. We have regulations that are over the top, and this is just another one, another little aspect, another one. And they just keep coming, and they just keep thinking that each and every one of us can handle another one. And we can't. I'm asking you to say this is not compatible, period. I don't care what the county says. This is a common sense issue. We're not compatible. They are recreational. We are farming, and they're not compatible. I have a lot more, but I don't want to go through all of these notes. So if you have any questions?
Patty, Andy answered the fact about is since Egg City left, there's obviously been the winds, there's been dust, there's natural vegetation. What I'm driving at is if we take up the concrete and the asphalt, how much of an increase would you expect? Has it been an issue since they've been gone as far as?
No, the dust is not an issue since they've been gone because the cement is still there. And if you do happen to walk it, or if you look at it, I kind of see it in that one that says OS 10 acres or something like that. You can see the little green things growing up through the cement. So that even anchors the cement more. And the roads that they have are actually pretty nice roads. They had a lot of infrastructure in that area, and it's pretty much covered. It's either ground, it's either growing vegetation right now, or it's concrete. That's even being anchored more by the vegetation that's coming up around it.
So you haven't had an issue with fugitive dust coming over?
No, no.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
And I know that one of you asked the question about, well, if they were to go into houses, what would happen? Yeah, that concrete would go out and it would be taken away, but then it would be covered. Because if you spend a couple $1 million for an acre of land, you better believe you're not going to leave it dirt. And they're going to landscape it and everything else. And they need to landscape the whole area to make it the project that they want to make someday. But again, that ability to have 12 houses there was because all of us came together and said, let's not have this happen again and again and again. Judy Michaels had been through so many of these that she was like, please, let's solve the problem. You guys don't want the problem anymore. Landowner doesn't want the problem anymore. County doesn't want the problem anymore. So we all came together and we worked on it. Staff probably wasn't hired then. Staff was in college learning how to do whatever it is that they do that really doesn't take into concept the history of what's going on there. Just the bookwork and the paperwork. Let's see, my neighbor mentioned the stop sign that's kind of scary at the bottom of 23 and right where Broadway Broadway crosses over that. Used to be at the top of that, right about 100 feet below Egg City, there was a yellow flashing light that indicated that there was a stop sign coming up. And then you came down and you stopped. Now, if you drive that road now coming down from Fillmore, you'll notice that there's no yellow flashing light there. It's because Caltrans in L.A. took a picture of it like this, and they came in and they took 23 and they made it wider. They put, what do you call those things beside the road? Anyway, they made it wider, and they banked it so that the people coming down could actually turn easier. So it kind of made it like a nice racetrack turn. But Broadway still crossed over it. So Broadway now goes and has a little bump right there and then comes on down. So, and they took that stop sign out. So they didn't want any. But that was created by somebody who was in L.A., who followed the bookwork, who did the engineering and everything else. So after they did it, because we were watching them the whole time they're doing it, like, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And then they didn't put that stop sign in. So we had to get together. We wrote a letter, sent it, and said, the first accident that happens here because you've created an extremely dangerous intersection. We'll be giving copies of this to everybody that's hurt in that accident so they can sue you for creating a danger zone. They came back in the next week and put in a stop sign. They didn't put in the yellow flashing light to tell people, and they didn't fix the bump that the people on Broadway still have to follow through. But, it's just it's that kind of stuff that when it's done from the bookwork angle, it doesn't always work in real life. And so in real life, this isn't compatible. And the CUP says that it's compatible, and it's not. And it might be compatible because this is OS, and this could happen in an OS area. That doesn't mean it's compatible. It means it's compatible in a book. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you call the next person, just staff, if you could research in your staff report, you said that entitlement for the homes was in 2005 and it was not recorded, so whether or not that continues to exist today?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wessner, the entitlement continues. They have until 2015 to record the map, so there's all kinds of technical review things that have to occur before a map actually records. But the map's alive, and they have till 2015 to record it.
Thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
My name is Richard Gray. I live at 9312 Stockton Road, which is about a mile south of this project. I've been farming for 16, 17 years. I've been in real estate as a real estate broker for 30 years. This is a recreational use. I remember going to the opening day of Disneyland when it was surrounded by orange groves, and I'm sure you have been there recently and not found any oranges probably in all of Orange County. And, this may be a slippery slope where, okay, we have recreational use here today, and what is it tomorrow? It's a country club, and what is it after that, and what happens to all the farmers? You've seen dairy farmers in Rialto or Riverside or San Bernardino where they've been there for decades, and then housing projects come in, and they're pushed away because they're incompatible, and they don't have the voting numbers to really have a say in how things develop. And we're a small farming community. There's just a few hundred of us surrounding this compared to, the millions of people in the rest of the county or the Southern California area. So we don't have the votes, but we have a beautiful use here that we want to preserve. And even if the zoning may say that recreational use is compatible with open space. We have open space next to agricultural zoning, and what is the relationship between those two zones in the future of agriculture in the county? And I just want to say that I don't really feel that this is a commercial venture. You know, you call it recreational activity, but somebody's doing this for a profit. This paintball is a business, and somebody's going to be making money off of this, and somebody's paying rent to rent this space. And so here we have a business, a commercial use next to an agricultural use. Are these compatible uses of property adjacent to each other? You know, live and let live if we can, but I want to see the agricultural preserved. It's one of the most important parts of Ventura County. So I just want to pose that question. Is this the best thing for the future of agriculture in this neighborhood and in this county to allow this type of use to come in? And, you know, is it a slippery slope? Where is this going to progress in the future? You know, who's going to see that? How do you know? Second, about accidents or anything like that. Yesterday morning, there was a semi loaded with hay on Broadway, I believe, delivering hay to the Waters Ranch, and the load fell off, blocked both lanes of Broadway. And it took them, I guess, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours to clean the road off. And that's a part right at the intersection of Shekel and Broadway there, where there's a rise in the hill. It's a blind intersection because of the rise and the topography and the hills and everything right next to it. And, you know, people were just lucky that nobody ran into that semi that had spilled its load on the road. You know, it's an accident that didn't really happen, even though it was an accidental spill. So these things happen all the time in agriculture areas. You have very slow tractors. You have all this stuff going on for ag use that are utilizing these roads for their purpose of agriculture, which is not compatible with somebody rushing to get to a paintball game. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for hearing me.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Mike Plater, 8775 Grimes Canyon. I also have frontage on Shekel Road. And, some of the things that Patty Waters said brought a tear to my eye. I'm still rebuilding my ranch from the planning debacle, county debacle of the MGR scenario. That's why the neighbors, I think, got together so quick in this instance, because there are issues. They haven't been addressed. Let me correct a few things that some of the county people have said. The drainage on the property, I've been there for about 20 years now. The drainage on the property, there's one large retention basin, there's a smaller retention basin above. These retention basins are not infinite, they're finite. When they fill in a heavy year, the water doesn't flow uphill, it flows downhill. I have 2 drains coming through my property. I share a drain between myself and Gary Cusumano's property, and then there's one more drain that actually exits at the turn of Shekel Road. So, in a light year and a half-inch of rain, yes, I'm sure they can maintain their own water, but in a heavy year, that's an untruth because it does come downhill. Secondly, the traffic engineers, I almost would have to pose a question as I leave, and that would be, who's going to have the liability if someone gets killed making a left turn without a left pocket there? Because the county did say that this was fine and this should be allowed. Also at the corner of Shekel and Broadway. My neighbors, of course, Brett Jones had to put in a pocket for exiting the 23, but my neighbor across the street, who put in a new driveway, had to also put in a deceleration lane and an acceleration lane. And he was a one-man band. This was for 1 car a day. So I don't understand how someone can, I could understand if someone has never been to the site, never spent any time at the site, and just looked at a map and said, oh, this should be sufficient, this should be sufficient, but it's not. The bottom line is, it's not. You know, paintball, great sport, fun, great. I mean, I like it. It's a great thing, but it's just the wrong location for the sport. the other thing that's concerning is property values. Now, I have been in contact with some realtors and some appraisers, and the mass consensus is that if a commercial amusement, recreational venture goes on across the street, then I will be losing value of my property. Now, I've already lost value of the property after the fire, so now the county wants to hit me up twice. Now, you know, the consensus, and I didn't bring anything in writing with me today. I didn't know that I would need to, but I can probably pay an MIA appraiser to give us an opinion, a written opinion. But for instance, let's say that the mass consensus is 30% reduction in value, 25 to 30%. I mean, if you have a piece of property up there and say my 46 acres is, let's throw out a number, say $2 million. That's a $600,000 hit that I really don't want to take. But if I'm going to take a hit like that, I'm sure going to pass it along to the county. I'm going to appeal my taxes and so will my neighbors, and it'll just be a snowball effect. So besides the economics of it all, and I don't know that the county can recover that loss of money just from the operations of the paintball facility. But besides that, there's the safety issues. There's the traffic. There's the spraying. I mean, if we get notice of a hard frost and we can get a chopper, I can pretty much talk for my neighbors. I mean, we're going to be spraying to make sure that we don't lose a crop. And if I can't get a hold of somebody, or my neighbors can't get a hold of somebody, we're still spraying. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And so I can see more liability there. I mean, it's just it's not compatible. The area is substandard. The streets are substandard, but we live with it. We know how to work with it. We know how to enter into these intersections. We know how to be safe up there. But you get people in from the city, these people are just clueless, and there's going to be accidents, and they might even take us out. So, you know, I'm putting in 2 new homes on the property. I hope to be replanting it this summer, or the next spring rather. You know, I'm putting a lot of money into our ranch, as we all do, and for this to be in the neighborhood, it's like I said, it's just not compatible, and it needs to go back, and there's questions need to be answered. And I have not heard anything that completes the issue of the drainage. Well, okay, in a light rain, yeah, we hold our own water. There's a lot of concrete up there. There's no absorption. It goes into the basins. When the basins overflow, they go into the tubes and they come downhill. And it just goes down, goes through my property, through the Monos, Waters, the McCutcheons. It goes through all of our properties on the way down to the river, on the way down to the 118. So there's just too many ifs that haven't been answered. And it's a great sport, but it's just location, location, location. It's the wrong area for a good sport. Any questions? Thank you.
Please state your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Welch. I work for Penfield and Smith, 1327 Del Norte in Camarillo, and I'm acting as agent for Glenn Forrester, the applicant. First and foremost, I want to thank Cristina Rosario. She did an incredible job evaluating the project and consulting with county departments in reaffirming their original findings when they evaluated the project. So thank you, Cristina. And my apologies up front if I echoed the same responses provided by staff, although I think it's really important that this project be understood that it was analyzed pursuant to the CEQA guidelines and conditioned appropriately to reduce potential impacts to less than significant. My presentation is going to focus on the 6 items of the appeal that Ms. Neiswinder, excuse me if I mispronounce your name, her 6 issue areas on the appeal. And then I'd like to close with responding to some of the salient points that we heard in today's testimony. The first issue on the appeal is demolition and removal of approximately 8 acres of concrete. As we've heard, the previous land use, referenced as Egg City, was a large chicken egg producing facility before it succumbed to disease and fire. The remnants of this egg facility are visible from Google Earth and the pictures that I have provided on the screen. The current property owner filed a tentative map to subdivide the property into 12 residential lots. This map was approved on January 25th, 2005. Condition of approval number 15 of Tract 5277 requires the property owner to provide a recycling plan for the removal of all 59 acres of concrete prior to map recordation. When this map records, there will be a much larger area that exposes bare soil. It was also anticipated that in addition to the residential development, there would be horse paddocks. This is not speculative. The tentative map is approved, and although the map has not recorded, as Brian Braca has mentioned, it has taken benefit of the Subdivision Map Act extensions and legislative extensions that have been afforded to live maps. Integrated Waste Management Division has assigned condition of approval 32, 33, and 34 to this map, to this project. What these conditions require Glenn to do is first file a form acknowledging how much concrete and asphalt will be removed and where that receiving site will be. Following the removal of the concrete and asphalt, he has to return to Integrated Waste Management Division and file another form acknowledging that this was done and the receiving site provided receipts confirming that the action had taken place. Air Pollution Control District, condition number 55 and 57, requires Glenn to ensure that during demolition, dust is kept to an absolute minimum. Alicia Stratton acknowledges that dust can have an adverse effect on agricultural crops, and we don't refute that. However, she also notes that in cooperation with the Ag Commissioner's Office, they've had success in preventing damage to crops caused by dust. Glenn is proposing to recycle 8 acres of concrete and asphalt. He has already had the area assessed by Grimes Rock. They've looked at a haul route plan within roads on site, meaning no haul traffic would go off site, and this can be feasibly accomplished. The traffic pictures, please. Appeal number 2 speaks about traffic impacts, including additional vehicle traffic and safety of intersections. The proposed paintball park would be limited to 104 days per year, with 12 of those days landing on either weekdays or a holiday. The vast majority of this business will occur on the weekends, which is the non-peak traffic period. As noted in Benham and Mommy's memorandum dated August 22nd, 2012, the traffic will be staggered over a 7-hour period, and not all traffic goes to the intersection of Shekel and Broadway. And as everybody has noted, there has not been a collision reported in over 10 years. Richard Poole, who authored the ATE report, reports about how the operation of the paintball will be conducted. I will defer to Glenn as the current operator of a paintball park in Castaic, and he can testify the number of customers arriving throughout the day. Appeal period issue number 3 speaks about agricultural impacts, including but not limited to dust generated by open fields and the impact of surrounding crops, impacts from runoff, impacts from stray paintballs on crops and agricultural workers. This is the western property line. With reference to dust generated by open fields and the impact of surrounding crops. Earlier I spoke about the removal of concrete and limiting its transfer to a recycling facility north of the project site. APCD condition of approval number 55 requires dust suppression during construction as well as during operation of the park. More specifically, Glenn is required to submit for review and approval an air emissions minimization plan for dust control. Glenn will have a water truck on site. At his current park, volunteer grasses and weeds have grown, which we anticipate to happen here as well. Glenn is also aware of the windy conditions that could result and has every intention of keeping an eye on the weather. He lives 10 minutes away from the site. He's investigated the feasibility of also seeding the site to supplement the volunteer weeds. Lastly, per condition of approval 55L, Glenn is required to post a sign displaying the APCD complaint line telephone number for public complaints. Additionally, condition of approval 49 requires Glenn to provide his contact information to adjacent growers who could then contact him directly to address excessive dust during periods of high wind. With reference to impacts from runoff, from a construction standpoint, whenever you disturb more than an acre of soil, the State Water Resources Control Board requires the permittee to submit a stormwater pollution prevention plan. That plan includes best management practices which involve erosion control measures. For example, hay bales, construction fencing, and the like. Glenn will have to prepare a SHWEP, submit it to the state reviews and approves it, and if they do approve it, they'll issue it a notice of intent and a waste discharge identification number. He cannot satisfy this condition until those two items are submitted to Ventura County Watershed Protection District. From an operational standpoint, condition of approval 39, Glenn is required to submit a stormwater runoff protection plan detailing the housekeeping that he has to implement throughout the permit's life. That means making sure the drainage ditch is free and clear of paintball debris, sediment, and trash, and ongoing inspections of the area throughout the day after the operation of the paintball park has closed, before the rainy season, and during the rainy season. The stormwater runoff protection plan will include all of these requirements. In addition to putting guards or grates or mesh over catch basins to ensure that runoff stays on site. With reference to impacts from stray paintballs on crops and agricultural workers, per condition of approval number 1, project description, Glenn has proposed a 50-foot setback from the western property line and to install a mesh on the 6-foot high chain link fence, and Glenn will provide a sample of what that mesh looks like. Condition of approval 52 from the Ag Commissioner's office repeats the requirement of the mesh screening on the fence. Glenn will provide a presentation illustrating a typical day at a paintball park, noting that customers and players are instructed on the rules and regulations, that referees are assigned to each arena to enforce these rules and regulations, and to prevent negligent behavior. In addition to Glenn proposing the 50-foot setback and mesh screening, there is a 30-foot unimproved road along the opposite side of the western property line that provides an additional separation. Appeal item number 4, lack of fire protection. Structures would be limited to arena playfield obstacles no higher than 8 feet. Ventura County Fire Protection District condition of approval 41 and 42 ensure that access into and out of the park is compliant with California state law and their ordinance. Condition 43 requires Glenn to submit a building permit for the sea cargo containers. Condition 45 requires him to submit Form 126, which is the fire department's clearance before a building permit can be issued. Condition number 44 requires brush clearance within 100 feet of any structures. And lastly, condition 47 authorizes the fire code official to go on to the site at any time to inspect. Ventura County Fire Protection District will ensure there is adequate fire protection. I had provided the commissioners with a set of our pictures in hard copy. Included in that is a picture of attachment 1, which was included in Ventura County Watershed Protection District's memorandum. This is in reference to appeal number 5, potential impacts from paintballs, including potential water quality issues. According to Mrs. Neislander's letter, dated August 2nd, 2012, the property is over the Las Posas outcrop, which is the primary groundwater recharge area for the entire Las Posas groundwater basin. However, pursuant to the Ventura County Watershed Protection District memorandum, dated August 17, 2012, attachment 1, which you have in your packet, the Las Posas outcrop is located in a small corner in the northwest part of the project site, mostly within that 50-foot setback. Additionally, the site drains to the inland portions of the site and not to the west. Further, the Ventura County Watershed Protection District also notes that the primary constituents of the paintballs are identified as food additives, with the only potential byproducts of paintball use coming from their natural decomposition. As noted previously, Condition 39 requires Glenn to submit a stormwater runoff protection plan for the purpose of cleaning this debris. We also have a manufacturer of paintball who is here to answer any questions regarding the constituents that make up paintballs, confirming that they are harmless, which is consistent with the county's assessment. Appeal item number 6, compatibility of commercial paintball park in a rural residential area. The project site is elevated on a plateau. The only residents that are located adjacent to the project site are 1,700 feet or more away. Only the sea cargo plane containers may be visible and intermittently at best. Per condition of approval 1, the containers are required to be painted in earth tone colors to blend in with the surrounding area. As noted in the staff report MND, the project site is zoned open space. According to the Ventura County General Plan goals, policies, and programs, the open space designation encompasses land which is essentially unimproved and devoted to open space uses. Open space uses include preservation of natural state resources, forests and rangelands, outdoor recreation, and spaces which require special management or regulation because of hazardous or special conditions, such as earthquakes or floodplains. The proposed paintball park is located in an area that is paved with 59 acres of concrete and does not characterize natural resources. The proposed paintball park would be consistent with the recreational uses indicated in the general plan. Further, 57 conditions of approval have been assigned to this permit to ensure potential impacts are mitigated. I'd like to briefly, as I mentioned, just respond to some of the salient points that we heard in today's testimony, starting with Mr. Cusumano, 4 syllables. The property is owned by Hyperion Land. If you could put up the first picture showing the concrete between Cusumano's property and the paintball site. Mr. Cusumano had said that his property is adjacent to the paintball site, but that's incorrect. The Hyperion Land Company owns the property between Mr. Cusumano's property and the paintball site, and that piece of property is paved in concrete, and that concrete is not proposed to be removed as part of the paintball park. I'd like to reiterate what Henry Gonzalez had mentioned in terms of state law and pesticides and no drift as the obligation of the farmer. The whole purpose of making sure we have open lines of communication is to make sure that the farmer isn't liable as well as Mr. Forester. We want to make sure that these lines of communication stay open, and Mr. Forester is more than willing to close the park down, given ample notice. There was mention about traffic, a lot of comments about traffic. I question, they are illustrating the existing setting out there as already a problem. A lot of that is noted on weekday traffic. Even the traffic report or traffic letter report by AT&E speaks about weekday traffic. Benham Anami, the traffic engineer for the county, has noted that the primary use of this property will occur on weekends, the non-peak hour traffic period. I think it's unfair to stereotype drivers that are farmers are better drivers than the urban travelers. With regards to Andy Waters' testimony, he mentions that bare ground with wind blowing will cause dust issues on his orchards, and we're not refuting that. However, when the map records, as I mentioned before, a lot of that area will be exposed. He also mentioned that there have been a lot of volunteers, as you can see in the picture in front of you, between the cracks of the concrete. Clearly, we will get the same volunteer vegetation when the concrete is removed. And as I mentioned before, we are entertaining the idea of supplementing that with seed or hydroseed. Cecilia Riddle mentions that there is 60 trucks and cars that she counted this morning. Again, that was weekday traffic and not weekend traffic. And again, they're speculating that people are lost or are bad drivers or are on their phone because they're lost. I don't think that's fair to all of a sudden put everybody who uses a public road as a bad driver. It's a public road that everybody's entitled to use. Patty Waters mentions that the tentative map that is still alive and kicking has planted setbacks, and that is correct. However, I believe she also said that the neighbors have a hand on what gets planted there. I have the conditions to that map, and there are references to what gets planted and how large it gets planted, but there's no reference that the responsibility is also shared with the neighbors. She also mentions that during Egg City there were accidents and that the county needs to improve the road for current conditions. The paintball park hasn't even been approved, and they're asking for roads to be improved. So it's the existing conditions that are causing problems currently. Having the paintball park occur on weekends would add incremental traffic, and as I said before, it's staggered over a 7-hour period. She also mentioned about trash containers and what would they be made out of. They would be made out of metal. So the chances of them catching on fire is minimal, if at best. The spindles that are used in the arenas are about 300 to 400 pounds, so chances are they're not going to get blown into the wind. She also mentions that 59 acres of the concrete will be removed by the property owners. The lots for the tentative tract range from 10.61 acres to 26.99 acres. I can't imagine that a property owner is going to be able to vegetate upwards of 30 acres quickly enough for there not to be any dust issues associated with the map. Richard Gray mentions that in open space, recreation is allowed, that paintball is for a profit. How is that any different than Faulkner or Underwood farms earning a profit? They actually generate a lot more people than the paintball park would, and there's no complaints on those establishments that earn a profit. Richard Gray also mentioned that recently a hay truck was driving down Broadway and the load fell off and closed the road. Well, why wasn't that load inspected? I did some research myself, and the city of Moore Park has been the city council has been discussing to prohibit trucks that aren't local deliveries because they feel that those trucks are actually avoiding the truck scales on the Conejo grade. Now, fortunately, there's another truck scale inspection area on the 118, but it's not always manned. So I question, if we're going to start speculating, why wasn't this truck inspected, and where are the truck traffic trips heading? What turns are they making, and are they trying to avoid the Conejo grade truck scale? Mike Platter mentions drainage basins overtopping. Remember, the site has 59 acres of impervious material, so the runoff is going to impact those basins. We propose to remove 8 acres, which will help the situation through infiltration. And when the map records, that will even be of more benefit to the infiltration and impacts to the basins up and downstream. Lastly, Mr. Platter mentions the economic value of his property possibly going down. And I know that economic value is not an environmental issue that CEQA addresses. But aside from that, if you've been to the site, Egg City is an eyesore. And unless and until things get better there, I can't imagine any property values increasing with that next door. So with that, I'm going to transfer the presentation over to Glenn Forrester. Absolutely.
Mr. Chair. Jennifer, either you can answer or the other applicant. This goes with fire. It states here that you'll be using hay bales, wooden spools, wooden walls, and building facades. Are those going to be fire resistant? Are they going to be in the fire plan? Again, understand where I'm coming from. You're going to be there 104 days, so every other day somebody might not be there. So we have potential wooden type structures. They won't blow away, I get that, but they may catch fire, which is a concern. So I don't have the fire plan in front of me, but I do have evidence that there's something wooden being there. Is that something you want to speak to or somebody else, or is it something that you can look at as far as making it fire resistant?
I also believe that the fire response time to the site is 5 minutes. So clearly if there's a fire response could get there in ample time. And there's a water truck on site. So Mr. Forrester lives 10 minutes away. The fire department is 5 minutes away. As soon as a fire is noticed, whether it be a vacant parcel or work paintball park, it would be addressed by the fire department and or my client.
Okay, thank you.
If I also can reserve the right to rebut should some new information come up. Thank you. Glenn has a video he'd like to show to the group, and then he'll go on with his regular presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn Forrester. I'm the paintball applicant. I live in 11763 Chestnut Ridge in Moore Park. The video you're about to see, before we just get in it, is a current commercial. It's a 2-minute little video of my current paintball park in Castaic. We've been operating there for 7 years, and just keep in mind that what you see on this video is very much what I plan on doing on this facility. Specifically, I want to ask you to, as you watch it, take a look at the terrain. You'll see the grass growing on the ground. You'll see the brush growing freely. Nothing we do is going to hinder that, and we're actually going to water it, cultivate it, and encourage it. So you can watch the video and see for yourself.
Tell you, paintball is
by far the most fun you're going to have. This is a real live-action video game. This is the one game where you can run around and be a kid. And excellent for kids to play right along with dads or moms, and they're equal together. You can't think of any other sport where you can say that about. So we have 8 different playing fields here at work. We have the castle, we have a town, we have 2 brush fields, we have 2 tournament arena fields on AstroTurf. We have a couple big scenario fields, what we call graveyard and pool fields.
Vietnam is probably my favorite because there's so much brush and you can just pop out at people.
I like Vietnam and I like town.
The town is one of our favorites. We have about 30 buildings mixed in with 3 different cars. Great for close quarter combat. Town was my favorite, but castle was also a good one.
I like Hamburger Hill because there's a big castle and you try to attack it.
Here at work, our number 1 goal is safety, and number 2 is to make sure you're having the best fun you could possibly have.
Everybody that's in charge is great. Our referee just kept a really good eye on the boys and made sure everybody's had a really good time. I shot, I don't know how many people, but it was fun.
We specialize here in private group reservations for birthday parties, bachelor parties, a lot of frat groups come out, corporate events. If you come out and play as a private group, you're only playing amongst your group, so you don't have to worry about playing with any other experienced players. If you come out and play with our walk-on group, usually 90% of them are all beginners. If we have experienced players, we do separate them out, and we make a special game just for the experienced guys. To play here at work, you have to be minimum 10 years of age. It's completely safe. We've never had an accident in 3.5 years we've been here.
I just wanted to make sure everybody would be safe and comfortable, everybody would have a good time.
As long as you're having fun, it doesn't hurt.
It's not that bad. Like, it fades away pretty quickly.
I think it's definitely worth it. It's a lot of fun.
It's worth it, yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
I play at War Paintball because it's local. It's good deal. It's not far from LA. You got good trips. You got good bunkers.
You don't need anything except to supply your own clothing. We give you the paintball gun. We give all the rental equipment. It's here on site, ready for you. You are allowed to bring your own paintballs here at War Paintball Park, but we do have our own paintballs. War Paintball Park is located here in beautiful Cascade, California, about 5 minutes north of Magic Mountain, just north of LA. We're just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
I think the video explains a lot. I want to quickly tell you about my background. I've been playing paintball since '87. I quickly got sponsored by a professional team out there, and I literally traveled the world playing competitions, won many world championships. And then as I got older, the young kids kicked my butt, and I got into the industry. So I've owned a paintball store in West LA for 13 years. I had the paintball park in Cascade now for 7. I've worked for gun manufacturers, paintball manufacturers, distributors. I'm pretty well expert on the industry. Our operation in Cascade is exactly what's going to be here. Our customer base is mainly geared toward birthday parties, honestly, but probably 75% of my business is birthday parties. Mom driving kids, car full of kids. They're always carpooling. We do a lot of corporate team building stuff. We hosted the Police and Fire Olympics one year. We do some charity events. We did a charity event for the Wounded Warrior Project, where everyone came out and wrote a big check to the Wounded Warrior Project. That was good. A typical day at our facility goes like this. We open at 9, we close at 4. People roll in between usually 9. They stagger in slowly between 9 to noon, 9 to 1, and it's slowly. It's sometimes in the morning we don't have enough people to start a game right away. We have to wait for more people to show up. But when people show up in the afternoon, then they play for a couple hours, and they migrate out. Somewhere usually around between 2 and 4. By 4 o'clock, everyone's gone. By 4:30, my staff is gone. When people come to our park, first thing they do is they register, they sign a liability waiver. We organize them in a quick safety orientation, And we spent about 15, 20 minutes going over safety rules. We go over all our rules. In Castaic, I got issues with property lines over there as well that I have to recognize, and I go over that with my customers. And then we hand them equipment. We assign their group. We assign them to a group, I should say. We have what we call a walk-on group with people coming in from the public, and then groups we call private reservations, which is probably 80% of our business is private reservations. And each group is assigned a referee, and that referee stays with that group the entire day. The players never leave their group. The referee will take them out to a designated field, and as you saw in the video, and they'll play a couple games. They come back to the parking lot, they get a drink, they clean up a little bit, they get ready for the next game. So, I want to quickly touch base on the market in Ventura. The market in Ventura has currently, there's three major paintball stores that supply paintballs, and they're just strictly paintball stores. Then you got Walmart, Big Five, they all sell paintball supplies. These people come to these stores and they buy their supplies and they go play. And if they're not playing at a legitimate paintball park, they're not making the drive all the way to Castaic, they're either playing at the one other legitimate paintball park already here in Ventura, which is under an auction off of Gonzales, which I'll get into more in a minute. Or most of them are just playing in the riverbeds up in the hills. Illegally, they jump the fences and they go on people's farms. You know, they're playing in unsafe conditions. These people need a place to play. Ventura needs a good place to play. The one that's in Oxnard, it's 3 acres. It's a little hole in the wall. They have all kinds of negative things about the place where people don't like to go there. There's a big outlaw field off of Santa Clara, in the Santa Clara River, where probably every weekend, any Saturday or Sunday, you'll go out there and you'll find maybe 30, 40 people playing there for free. And, you know, it's totally unregulated. They're tramping along vegetation. They're leaving their trash to wash down the river. And they're playing unsafe. There's no one there to regulate. Kids are going to, I can't believe I'd be surprised if anyone hasn't lost an eye over there already, from not being supervised properly. The facility on the screen here was hard for me to find. I spent a lot of time trying to find a facility to put this place in. I looked at a lot of different places, property for paintball park is not easy. So I know the neighbors want to make it sound easy. Oh, let's just move it. It's not exactly easy. Property around here is either ag or it's populated with something, So open space is our only option, and open space land is far, hard to find. When I came across this property, it was, I thought it was a little dream come true, because and I still think it's a dream come true because it's isolated from everything. We're talking about Egg City. Egg City they used to produce 2 million eggs there a day, I heard. The traffic flow coming in and out of that place, the infrastructure they put in place is all still there. The roads are still there. Everything's still there. And I'm just utilizing it. Traffic going down there, the street on Shekel is our main thoroughfare. That's a major 2-lane road with a double yellow line going through it. It's built for heavy traffic flow. I understand there's nothing there now. I mean, I've been there many a times. I've been there with staff. I sat there for hours and hours and hours. You literally got to wait hours and hours and hours for a car to go by because there's just nothing around. Traffic flow coming to our facility, our customers, they find us through our website, and they book a reservation online through our website, and we send them information on how to find us. And I'm not just giving them an address and hope they find us, and they wind through all these roads. They're going to follow our directions, just like I do with my current facility. Our customer base comes from Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, all of Ventura, and they're going to get to our park in the most efficient way they can. They're not going there to sightsee orchards. They're going to play paintball.
when they get there, they're going to take the most direct route. The most direct route is Highway 23, turn onto Shekel, you go 1,500 to 200 feet, and you turn on the property. When they leave, they're going to go back the same way. We spent hours here talking about the intersection of Broadway and Shekel. I'm sorry, but I think that's this big hoax, smoke and mirrors campaign. I don't think anyone's going to go to Broadway and Shekel. Okay, the first time when the neighbors sent a letter bringing up Broadway and Shekel, I was like, where the hell is Broadway and Shekel? So I went to go find it, and what I found was it's a joke. No one's going to go that way. If they go that way, they're going up into the orchards. It's not a direct route for these people to go home. The direct route is 200 feet down Shekel, turn on to Highway 23, head off to the 118, or go down to Fillmore. It's not, I'm sorry, I just think it's a big smoke and mirrors campaign, and I hope you're not falling for it. When it comes to the issue of are we in a compatible area, let me tell you, paintball parks are all in rural areas. They all are next to some farm or, it's some cow pasture or something. They're not in urban areas for obvious reasons. The perfect example of what I want to point out is the current facility in Oxnard. Okay, it's called Paintball USA. It just took over by a new owner, and the previous owner had it there for, it's got to be over there for 20 years, 15, 20 years, easy. I used to play there as a customer. And let me tell you about this facility. This facility is literally on 3 acres, smashed in between an organic strawberry farm and the Santa Clara River. They have a tiny little strip of land. Access to it is literally down the dirt road through the middle of the strawberry farm, shared with all the farmers, all their trucks, okay? And yes, soccer mom drives their SUV down there with a carload of kids right down this dirt road. I played there once when it was raining, and I got stuck back there because the road's not maintained. This is a typical paintball facility. And paintball facilities simply we're not going to affect the local, I don't feel we're going to affect the local farmers at all. The perfect example is the one right down the street. What is it, 5 miles from here? Right off Gonzales and Victoria. All day long, there's no setback. People playing paintball, paintball's flying over in those strawberry farms all day long. They're actually going down into the riverbed where they're not supposed to be doing. They're playing down there, leaving their trash and garbage, going down the river, stomping on the natural vegetation. I'm trying to be the good guy here by bringing this facility, have a professional facility with rules. I respect all the rules, that, all the conditions that staff has put together. We put together a 50-foot setback with a 6-foot high mesh fence in between to separate us from my one neighbor is on the western border. I'm sorry, there's 2 farms there, but one border. And damn right, I'm going to respect that property line. I have to. I want this thing to succeed. And I want to work with the neighbors. I want to be part of their community. I want to take care of the neighbor. I want to take care of the Shekel Road and whatever needs maintained. I approached the neighbors on many occasions. I've asked them to come to a meeting. We met at the facility. All the immediate neighbors were there. And we had a nice little powwow. And I brought a paintball gun to show them how far a paintball will shoot and show them how my step back, I'm not going to affect them. They didn't want me to bring it out of the car. They didn't care. They told me straight out that paintball is going on their property. It's not a big deal. They don't care. I asked them, so what are your concerns? Why are we meeting? Their concerns were traffic. Their concerns were overspray of chemicals. Those were the 2 concerns they laid out to me face to face. So we addressed those. Number 1, chemical spraying. I did my research on those two farms and how often they do chemical spraying. There's reports for the dangerous chemicals, at least, not all of them. And what I found was, for the last 2 years of records, there were no chemical spraying by helicopter on either one of these facilities. Each one had like maybe 2 permits for local spraying. We're talking about a guy driving around in a four-wheeler ground spraying. It was Roundup for weed control. Okay, this isn't to me, that doesn't sound like a big impact to my facility. And I made it very clear to these guys in person that I want to be their neighbors. I want to work with them. My phone will be on all night. If there's ever an issue, they can call me. If they need to spray the next day, yes, I'll shut down. I have to. I'd much rather piss off a customer that had a reservation with me than lose my business and potential, shut my facility down. And when my customers come on site, they'll sign a waiver and there'll be a part in an addendum in there talking about potential, maybe if there's an odor from a chemical spray, to make them aware of it. I just don't think it's a big issue. I'm totally willing to work with them. The other main issue of traffic, like I said, Broadway and Shekel, smoke screen. When it comes to the traffic that they're so worried about, and all the traffic, okay, at the last hearing we had from the planning director hearing, they're all here. I had the ag commissioner here. All staff was there. There was a lot of people there. The same neighbors that gave a speech to you today got up there and said in public that they would have no problem with me moving the facility on the other side of Egg City. That would utilize the same entranceway, same roads. Okay? They want me to move just on the other side of the hill. Okay? And they want to know why I'm not willing to move. They told me if I move, they won't fight me on this issue. So all this fight about traffic flow and impact to the neighborhood is a joke. They don't care about that because they were willing to let me move right down the street. A couple hundred yards away. We would use the same entranceway, same gate. So one of the neighbors is he's not here today. John Fry. He's one of the neighbors on the western border. His primary residence is in Castaic, right next to my current facility. I've talked to John many times on the phone. We've had nice conversations. And I asked John to come on over and see my facility many times, at least 2 or 3. And, I'll ask him, come see my facility. Come see what I do. Come see the traffic for yourself. And he didn't show up. So, I did everything I can to explain to him what's going on. The main, when it comes to the sand blowing and the wind kicking up there, that seems to be another big topic of theirs. You saw by my video, my current facility, the vegetation on the ground, the wild grass growing. I didn't plant that grass; it's wild. Okay. There is no reason when we take up this concrete that the same is not going to happen here. Of course it is. It's going to naturally grow, and we'll seed it if we have to, and we'll water it, and we'll cultivate it, and we're going to make sure there's no sand blowing across the neighbors' orchards. I have to. I want to work with these guys. I don't need them at the next hearing fighting for whatever violation I might come up. So, I think I pretty much covered it. I'm trying to be the good neighbor, and I don't think I'm going to impact these guys at all. Honestly, I don't think they're going to know I'm there. The property itself, the topography of the property, I don't think has properly been explained. You said, I know you guys are all familiar with property, but there's different paths on this property. I mean, you said you've driven by it. I don't know if you've ever driven on it. There's different pads, and they're all different levels. 150 feet is the next one, the next one, the next one. They keep going up. This actual this 20-acre piece that we're going to put the facility in is surrounded on three sides by on the north and west side is a huge hill, big natural barrier. On the south side, I got probably a 300-foot cliff, and then another 1,000 feet of concrete separating before Shekel. When you're driving along Shekel, you're going anywhere on neighbors' properties, you can't see our facility. I'm not going to be an eyesore because I'm hidden. I'm in a box canyon, and no one could see me. For them to even see what I'm doing up there, they would have to drive up the Waters farm, down their road access, up along the gate, and peek over a little berm probably like this high and look over the fence to see what's going on. I'm hidden. No one's going to see us. No one's going to even know we're there. We're not bothering anybody. The worst thing we could do is drive, in my opinion, is to these people we're driving 200 feet down Shekel and turning on Highway 23. And if that's a major impact, I'm lost for words. There was a little bit of talk of a wash basin and runoff. The catch basin on this property. The catch basin they're referring to, I think does pointer work? Okay. All right. This is my parking lot here. Okay. This is the center trough that they're talking about where water runs. Water goes here, runs along here, runs down here, runs down along our property, inside our property. Okay, goes through a culvert and enters a basin down here off of Shekel. Okay? God knows where it goes from there. But over here, on the next parcel, on the other side of a hill, is this catch basin they were referring to. I guarantee not a drop of water from my property is going to go that way. Ever. It's just not feasible. So, I'm sorry, but you guys have been listening to an hour of literal smoke and mirrors. So, I'd love to answer any questions you have. Yeah. No. Absolutely not. It's happened. We kick them out. We ask them to put it away. Not a problem.
Mr. Chair. In the initial construction process, you'll be removing all the cement and so forth, and then once that's gone, and you have these bare fields that don't have grass on them yet, what's going to be your routine for keeping the dust down on that?
Well, water trucks are going to be on site immediately before any piece of concrete is moved, and it'll stay. That water truck's going to keep dust control down while the grass grows, and if we have to, like I said, we'll seed with seed. If it grows naturally fast enough, then great. But yes, we will control any dust. It's made very clear by staff that it's my responsibility, and I accept it.
So you see that happening on a weekly basis, I would imagine.
I'm not a farmer. I'm not going to tell you how fast grass grows, but I don't think it's going to take very long for those roots to set and grow. When our facility, the traffic flow, once it's up and running, the traffic flow that kids and our customers are running around the facility, trampling the grass, is not enough to knock it down. It's not going to be a desert. It's going to be grass. It's going to be natural vegetation. I'm seriously considering planting a part of it so I could have a jungle field, and that's going to be a part of our operation. Definitely attacking the dust control with grass and other vegetation is primary. My first thing I'm going to do when that concrete's removed. Nothing else will be done until that happens.
Thank you.
Sure. Glenn, a couple questions. obviously you've gone through this before, so.
Yeah.
When the discussion of dust suppression and the field, the natural grass and all that, at the director's hearing, was this discussed at all?
Well, they brought up everything they brought up today, and I didn't. We disputed it briefly. It wasn't as detailed like this went into it right now.
Okay. The reason I say that is Jennifer also represented, if it's appropriate, you'd be willing to hydroseed it or some kind of overseed.
Yeah, I've already received quotes for it.
Okay. Number two, as I brought up with Jennifer, the issue of using these wooden structures or spools and bay hails. Again, the concern of fire, I'm sure that's been brought up to you more than once.
Yeah.
And I know 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away, the issues during the Santa Ana wind, it spread pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Any discussion about making these wooden structures some kind of fire resistant? Have you, in your stake operation, issues like that?
Well, to answer your question directly, no, there hasn't been discussion, but it's a good thing to talk about. I'm not opposed to it. You see the little building facades that we had in the video and stuff. It's just plywood. But we're going to paint them, and yeah, I will definitely address that.
Okay, I would like to see that. Again, I understand we have things in place, and we had them in place before, but having lived in the area for over 30 years, winds kick up 5 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so just making them at least fire resistant initially.
Yeah, I understand your point. I don't want to cut you off. Keep in mind, we're only out there 2 days a week, and if anything happens out there, it's not going to be started on our property. We're not out there during the week. It's like fire coming through. I'll destroy anything. I'll do my best. Yes.
Okay, and I'm sure staff will take note of that when the fire department comes out and visits with you on that. We'll discuss that later. The last thing is the signage as far as Shekel Road off the 23. Having driven it almost every other day of my life for a long time, I don't know if that's something we can work with as far as clarifying it, because if nothing else, mom in the SUV with the kids misses the turn. She's in Fillmore. She's not going to be happy trying to drive back the other way. So more of just a signage issue, and I think we can address that with staff as far as where the appropriate turn is. And I think that's all the questions I have of you at this. Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have several questions. You're going to have a retail concession of some type there? You mentioned
you talking about food?
You mentioned paintballs that people didn't have, bring their own, that you would sell them.
Correct.
How does that work?
Yes. We don't. Oh, I'm sorry. We don't have like a retail establishment. People. The only thing we sell is we sell entrance fee. We rent equipment, and we sell paintballs that they use on site. That's all we have.
I heard you respond to an earlier question saying there'll be no alcohol sold on the premises. Is there any beverage at all provided?
Yeah.
Sold on the premises?
Yes, we'll have vending machines that'll sell bottled water, just drinks and stuff like that. We may contract with a local, a caterer, a hot dog cart guy to come up there in the afternoon and sell stuff. Someone licensed that can do it. I've been directed by staff that I'm not allowed to do anything. I do not have a food permit.
Question of staff, is that an activity that's allowed within the conditions that we're talking about here?
Are you asking to have a mobile food vendor come up?
Correct. Contracting with the applicant.
I'd have to look through the conditions and check with environmental health real quick, but I'll look at that and make sure I get an answer for you.
Okay. Tell me about the paint guns and the velocity of those pellets and the distance of those pellets unobstructed.
Would you like to see one?
I don't need to see one. I'd like to know that the mechanics of it.
The paintball markers, they'll shoot a pellet at 280 feet per second is what we regulate it at. They travel 30, 50 feet, flat and straight, which is the reason for our 50-foot buffer with a 6-foot mesh fence. If someone was shooting at another participant and they miss, that buffer zone with the fence should be sufficient, more than sufficient, to keep paintballs off a neighbor's property. Of course, anybody shooting up in the air or something like that, I consider that a violation of my rules, reckless, and my staff is all over them immediately. So it's going over. So in the morning rules, we go over that, all the rules and things. So no one's allowed to shoot up in the air. So yeah, if you shoot up in the air, it's going to go farther, of course. But definitely a violation of our rules, and we're all over that.
Are there any industry type benchmarks for employees as referees or whatever the term is you use to oversee the activity within the different playgrounds? I mean, how do you define, how do you designate who is a referee?
Okay. Our staff is hired by me. They're trained by me. They're giving staff uniforms. So when you show up, it's pretty obvious on who's staff and who's not. Referee is just a little term we use, you know. They're basically safety monitors, but we call them referees. They're very easily distinguishable. Every group is introduced to their referee, and they stay with them all day, immediately when they come on the property, and it's very clear when you enter the property who your referee is.
Are all your referees adults?
Yes.
You mentioned as part of your briefing orientation when people come on-prem that you have a 10 or 15-minute orientation wherein they sign waivers, liability waivers. Do you require identification of everybody that's signing a waiver?
No.
So whatever name they put down is the name you have on your waiver?
Yeah.
Without verification?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't check. I never had an issue in 7 years of someone lying about who they were just to play paintball. They're not getting into a nightclub. So that's not a big deal to us.
You also mentioned that you get soccer moms up there caravanning with carloads full of kids.
Yeah.
Who signs the waivers on behalf of those activities, those groups?
Okay. Our waiver is downloadable on our website, so we encourage all groups when they make a reservation with us on the phone that they print out the waiver ahead of time, and their parents, if they're minors, their parents will sign it for them, and they bring it with them. If a parent were to send their kid with another mom for a birthday party and they don't have their waiver, the parent that's bringing them is their legal guardian for the day, because their parent left them in their care, and their guardian will sign the waiver, the release of liability for them at the time.
And so basically your hours of operation are 9 to 4.
Yes.
And you say your staff's pretty well gone, and you're locked up by 4:30.
4:30.
That's at your Castaic site.
Yeah, rarely, maybe 5 at the latest. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any sort of night lighting? Any sort of?
No light lighting is proposed.
Is there any sort of power on-prem on the Castaic site?
We use a generator.
You do or don't?
We use a small generator. A small generator just for we charge our mobile credit card machine. That's literally all I need power for.
Okay. So that's the only power you have on-prem for this type of activity?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about the shipping container lockers. 3? Is that what I think I read?
We asked for up to 3. We're not. I'm probably just going to 2, but we asked for up to 3. Mainly it's just storage where we store all our tools and our rental equipment.
Okay. So really nothing happens. I'm hearing you say nothing happens on the premises Monday through Friday.
We might have myself or my staff might come up and just clean our rental equipment and get ready for the weekend, but we're not open for business. The gate will stay locked.
And some mention was made that you had a sample of the mesh type covering that you were going to put along the perimeter fencing. Is that available?
This is a current mesh that's mandated through our insurance company to hold up against the force of a paintball. I literally purchase it through our insurance company. They get me twice.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir. Do you have other speakers that you wish to present? Are you making a presentation from your group?
Yes.
Well, let me ask a question. Does anyone on the commission have questions regarding the composition of the paintball? I don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
Anyone else with expertise? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else in your group wish to speak?
I just want to say one little thing. I'm the manufacturer of the paintballs. My name's Don Steele, and I live in Westlake Village, 1215 Kelsford Court. But I find this rather interesting. I've been making paintballs for 25 or 30 years. I've known Glenn for about 25 years. But I manufacture paintballs in China, and I also do nutritional products, which the paintballs themselves are capsules that are made on a type of machine that's called a soft gel machine. But just something I noticed that was kind of interesting is the fact that we have farmers, mainly tree farmers, talking to a forester here about a product that was originally invented by tree farmers to mark their trees when they were going to take them out. So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next, please. Please state your name and address. Folks, in a few minutes, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Gilbert Martinez. I live at 25256 Diamondback Avenue in Stevenson's Ranch. I'm here to speak on Glenn's behalf and give my expert opinion on the sport of paintball. I feel I'm qualified to speak about it because I played the sport the longest on the West Coast. The sport started in 1981, just as this gentleman said, when the cattlemen and ranchers first started marking their trees for logging. Players started playing right about that time in 81, and I started playing in 82. I've been playing consistently the entire time, 30 years. I play every weekend. I travel to different fields across the country, out of the country. I enjoy this sport. It's my chosen hobby. 2 weeks ago, I was over here at Paintball USA in Oxnard. That field on McGrath Ranch is literally, you have to drive through the middle of an organic strawberry patch to get to it. So it has its place in a community like that. 2 weeks ago, or last week, I was up in Sacramento at Capitol Edge Paintball Park, and you drive through a cattle farm to get to it. It has its place in a community like that. I can list other facilities within this close region that are also in the same type of environment. Lost Creek Paintball Park. You drive through an egg farm and hatchery to get to it. That's over in Canyon Country. Fields of Fire in U-Haul. It's directly next to a church. So it has its place in the community without disturbing its neighbors. California Paintball Park over in Castaic. It's on Charlie Road. You go through the North County Animal Shelter. It has its place there too. It's not disturbing its occupants and the animals there that they keep. Postal Creek Paintball in Bakersfield. I go there probably once every month. You drive through an open range, graded pathway to make sure the stock don't wander. It's directly next to the Kern River Valley Wildlife Refuge. It has its place in the community. So paintball players on a whole, they're environmental conscious. They're eco-friendly. They care about things. They're considerate and respectful of the neighbors. So it's not a waste of time to come here and talk about this and help educate people about the sport of paintball. And if I've helped do that a little, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you. Do we have any more speakers supporting the staff recommendation? State your name and address, sir.
Hi, Jerry Irons. I live at 2118 Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica. I'm the landowner of the paintball park in Castaic. We have 40 acres, which is double the size of this. We have, in the 7 years that Glenn's been running this operation, he runs a very clean operation. We've never had any incidents with the neighbors, traffic, accidents. The participants drive past probably 300 homes, 2 schools, to come to his facility. The paintball park, in my opinion, is good for the local business owners. It's a great place for the kids to come out and play and have a nice recreational day. Not only I've seen soccer moms play with their kids. I've seen dads play with their kids. It's just a great outlet for people to come out and have a nice afternoon. And sometimes this facility will, I've never seen over 150 people at the Park in Castaic. Sometimes I've seen as little as 50 people there. As far as being accessible by phone, Glenn, anytime I've ever called Glenn, he's either answered the phone or got back to me within 5 minutes. So he's always available. They have adequate restrooms on the site. They have steel garbage cans. There's no cardboard box. They do a very good job of cleaning up the facility every time they're open. The containers out at the Castaic property are painted earth tone colors. We have a yearly inspection out there. We've never had an issue with anything with the county or the city, and I recommend that this facility be allowed to operate here.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
The next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Eng. My address is 22361 Homestead Place in Saugus. I'm one of the, I think the term was clueless city dwellers, who would be participating in the sport. I've been playing paintball almost as long as Glenn, although I did not take the professional route as he did. Other than being the clueless city dweller, I'm a husband, a father. I'm a partner at a major law firm in Los Angeles. I'm also a former United States Marine. With regards to some of the issues that have been addressed today, with regards to the environmental impact, the vegetation and the dust as one issue, I can attest personally to the vegetation naturally growing. I've actually been one of the reps at Glenn's current field in Castaic. I've witnessed and I've actually had to trim back the overgrowth sometimes on the field. It grows rapidly and abundantly. So I think the dust situation would be very quickly abated, as Glenn pointed out. As far as the coexistence with surrounding neighbors and the other things going on in the farming, if you don't already know, the Marine base down in San Diego, Camp Pendleton, is a wildlife preserve. They have a paintball field, a very large complex, on the base. It coexists in an animal preservation area. So I don't think the arguments of incompatibility have any merit in this instance, given the space, the surrounding spaces around his field, and the manner in which he's going to run his field. I believe you had asked the questions about the referees. I can personally attest to everyone that I've seen working at Glenn's field. Not only are they trained by Glenn, but correct me if I'm wrong, all of them are experienced paintball players. I've never seen anyone at his field who was actually working on a field that didn't also play paintball and know how to play it properly, meaning masks on, safety equipment used at all times. Those are some of the foremost values that Glenn uses at his field, and that's why I go there, because of the safety rules implemented. With regards to the traffic, I made the comment about being the clueless city dweller. I think I heard many comments about the types of people that would be driving through. I think that, using Glenn's term, that's a little smoke and mirrors. I would be one of those individuals. I would hope I would have some common sense when I drive, okay? As any other adult going to this field or driving their kids to this field. I just think it's an exaggeration to make that huge assumption that there's going to be these wild, crazy people driving not paying attention and risking their lives simply to go play a game of paintball. And it would be somewhat irresponsible to make that assumption and use that as a basis for not allowing this field to open. With that said, I believe all the other comments have been properly addressed, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you. The next speaker, please. State your name and address, please, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Marcy Poos, and my address is 22100 Burbank Boulevard in Woodland Hills. I've been attending Glenn's paintball field for about 7 years with my kids. I'm the soccer mom, and actually I drive a Miata, but we drive up the canyon, and Glenn's field has lots of canyons to get to it. In the 7 years I've been there, I've never seen an accident on that road. I go there because the place is extremely clean and safe, and I can just go sit out there and read while my son's playing. There's never paintballs just flying all over the place. They're always in contained areas, and my son's very, very small, so he can never play basketball, he can never play football or any other sport. And I love the fact that he can go play paintball and follows the rules, and it's very structured, and I like that about it. So I just want to let you know that I've been doing it for 7 years, and I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker. Please state your name and address, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sue Kirsch, and I'm a grandma who takes my grandson to the paintball field. And I've always found that paintball field in Castaic to be beautiful. He takes great care of it. And the same thing that the lady just before me said was that he is very, very disciplined. You go there, you take off your mask for 1 second, you're off the field. There's no horseplay on that field other than what you were allowed to do in paintball. And I think that's partially what may be misunderstood by people who've never been there, and I probably would think the same if I didn't know better. In addition, I'm a real estate agent, and I work in Westlake Village. My address is 883 Westlake Boulevard, and I look at the property values. I know one of the people mentioned that if they put a paintball field there, that would definitely decrease his value by like 30%. I have been up to the new paintball field, and I've seen it, and it is probably one of the most awful places at one point. You can see all the old cracked stuff is there. You can see remnants from where the old chicken farms were. I swear I was walking around like this. You're worried about things that might not be too healthy. I would think that is a field that needs some cleaning up, and probably is and has had some. The other thing I wanted to say is that the Castaic field is in the desert, basically. Castaic is much warmer than it is in Moore Park. So if they're concerned about water and plants growing and whatever, Glenn has had a way more difficult time making that field green and nice. But that's what people want to come to. They don't want to come to a dirty, old, dusty field. That's not going to benefit a business for him. Here, the weather's much more temperate. It probably won't need anywhere near the water that the other one needed. But as you saw from the video, it's very green out there, and the kids go for the kind of the nature feeling, and I think it has all of that. And the last thing I want to say is that the Castaic field is at the end of it's actually on the ridge route, the original ridge route. It was a very, very dangerous road at one point. Below this, probably a mile or two, are all of new developments of homes, homes after homes after homes. There's at least 400 homes in the developments there, and they're all quite expensive and beautiful. Beyond that is another elementary school, which is closer to Glenn's Field and actually in a little rural area. And then Glenn's Field is beyond that. There has been no depreciation in the value of those homes, which were built before the paint fill was, at all. They have gone down like everything in Los Angeles and Ventura County has, but in no more in relation has there ever been an issue of anyone saying, oh, I wouldn't want to live here, or this isn't a good area because there's a paintball field around it. So I don't think that that's a very good answer anyway. I would just say that I think it's a great place for young people to go, a whole lot better than them hanging out in riverbeds, shooting these things off with who knows what. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Your next speaker, please. Please state your name and address.
My name is Matt Wyckoff. I live at 20205 Jennifer Court in Canyon Country, California. I've been also a paintball player. I'm currently, I'm a VP, area director for a very large bank here in Ventura County. I've been playing paintball probably over 10 years myself, and I think I'm indicative of a lot of the players that come out. We come out to have a good time. It's a very, it's a camaraderie that's there. I think for the most part, almost all the people that come out there are very responsible individuals. I've coached teams in the past myself, and it's all about teaching the kids the right way of playing paintball. I think Glenn does a great job with that, of instructing new people to the sport, new and old players that have played for years. Just to echo some other notes that I think, Jill, you were saying about where fields are. There's a giant field that's been in Corona for years called SC Village. It's in the middle of farmland. There's egg farms, there's dairy farms everywhere, and I've played all over the state myself, and most of these are in rural areas. There's only one field I know of anywhere that's in the middle of the city, and that's down in Bellflower. Every other field that I've ever been to has always been in rural where you've got either orchards or farms or houses. It just depends. So I think it is, again, it's compatible with the surrounding community, and I think that would not be an impact to that. So I support this field as well.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker. Please state your name and address.
My name is Leo Ibarra. I live at 692 Warrendale Avenue, Simi Valley, California, 93065. I've been playing paintball since I was 19 years old. I'm 31 years old right now. I guess you would classify me as one of those soccer dads or soccer mom, I guess, as you all call me. Brought my wife here as well. She's into paintball as well. I also have a 5-year-old that is somehow into paintball. He's grown up with us since he was born. He basically ate paintballs as a little kid. He shot paintball guns as a little kid and will continue as he gets older. I've grown up with going to multiple paintball fields, SC Village, which is in the middle of nowhere, next to a bunch of cattle, next to a bunch of farms, everywhere. No matter what, a paintball field is always in some place in Bumsville, Idaho, somewhere, except for the one that's located in Bellflower. Either way, I've grown up with paintball, with the people who actually own it, to those who actually play, to those who actually work at these fields. They range anywhere from the ages of 19 to 45 years old to 50 years old. It doesn't really matter. The people that are trained in this sport or actually play this sport respect each other. They basically grow up with, it's like playing chess, I guess you would put it in that aspect. Sorry, I'm a little bit kind of nervous here. When it comes to Glenfield, it's just to give you a little bit of background. I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in Compton. There was no paintball fields, nowhere to be found, except for the one in Bellflower. I fought for that one as well. I'm here to fight for this one as well, because it's my sport. It's the only sport that some of us can only play. Like Marcy said, her son is really, really small. He can't play any other sport. Same thing with my son. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to play basketball, soccer, whatever it is. I still want him to have that opportunity to be able to play the same sport that his father and his mother and his cousins and everyone else that I pretty much introduced to paintball will be able to play. When it comes to these traffic things that we keep mentioning about traffic flow and things like that, that's stuff that you guys should have already handled, the city, not up to Glenn or anyone else or be brought into this as smoke and mirrors. That has nothing to do with it. Same thing with the property. Would they just rather have them build a giant overgrown building that is in complete eyesore? Would they complain about that as well? I don't think it really matters. They keep mentioning, that it's a giant playground. It's not a giant playground. It's not an overgrown eyesore like Disneyland. Glenn runs it like Disneyland, so where it's organized, boxes are broken down. Even people who don't work there, who actually play there, assist for his team to be able to get out of there as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. Boxes are broken down, paintballs are picked up, items are put away. Bunkers, as you saw in the video, are inflatable. Those would actually get blown away. Those are taken down every single weekend and cleaned off every single weekend and stored within those containers. I've gone through it. I've assisted Glenn, and I've assisted everyone else. It takes a while for you to take that stuff apart, but his main concern is the safety of the field and everyone else that's involved with it. So everything's put away, everything's taken care of, no fires, anything else. We all assist each other. There's boxes on the floor, there's paper on the floor, there's cups on the floor. All that stuff is picked up, thrown away, and safely contained within a garbage can or whatever it actually is. When it comes to either noise ordinance or anything else, or a paintball flying into another person's property, that's physically impossible with that 50 feet or however ridiculous amount of gas that he actually put on there. I've worked for multiple paintball fields at, besides Castaic, working at the one in Bell Farm, the one in Corona. They put a huge, giant gap. The cows never get hit. Strawberries never get hit. I've never seen it once. They're practically biodegradable. If it lands in water, it becomes mush, and you smush it on the floor, and it becomes part of mud, dirt, and everything else. So that I probably wouldn't even worry about. The whole city slicker thing with the whole traffic, I come back to that again. Hopefully that doesn't get brought back. When they first bought their properties, they didn't know the traffic or how to get to that certain area, so they were as lost as pretty much we were. So why should they treat us any different because we're from the inner city and they're from being farmland? It doesn't really matter. In me getting to this paintball field and actually learning how to get there, I'm going to relay that information to my wife. My wife's going to relay it to our friends. I'm going to relay it to our friends. I'm going to post it all over the freaking internet if I actually want to. To be able to say, look, this is the way you should be going. This is the proper way. This is the safest way that you should be doing it. That's how we all work. It's not to where it's like I'm going to stick my head out and I'm going to get rear-ended left and right. So being kind of put in that little gap of being a soccer mom or soccer dad kind of insults me. It's kind of like saying that I'm a dumb driver. I don't call anyone a dumb driver. They have to go into the inner city. We have to go into their area of farmland. We have to coexist, just like every paintball field that's up and operational is in different rural areas that you would never think of. Them being next to a dairy, being next to all this cattle and farms and things like that, or even in the inner city. Who would think of a paintball field in an inner city, like right next to homes and everything else? And that's the other thing I want to bring up is that they're saying that it doesn't have its place to be in the middle of this area next to their farms and things like that. But what about these homes that they were planning on putting there? That's where these soccer moms are going to live. This is where these VPs were going to live, where these executives. It's not going to be just farmers, or are they just going to allow farmers to move into those homes? No, it would be inner city folks that would be driving there. And that inner city folk would, no matter what, invade your space. So, just like Glenn said, it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Don't fall for it. It's like I've lived here practically for 3-4 years. I've grown up in Compton. I've grown up in Mexico. My parents were farmers. We are huge agriculturalists when it comes to the cocoa leaf. I've been there, inner city and growing things. It doesn't really matter, so please, hopefully, grant him permission to be able to open his paintball park and give all these kids an opportunity to learn and play paintball, like my son and Marcy's son and everyone else. And also to mention the youth that we brought up. We spent thousands of dollars on kids that I have seen grown up from the ages of 11 to now they're like 24 and 25. These kids would have not have survived in the inner city if it wasn't for the sport of paintball or these paintball fields. Because if you saw some of these kids, they had no other life besides either getting shot in the street or growing up with a bunch of drugs or anything else. Once they took and embraced paintball and they learned how to play with other kids and play with adults and play with family members, that became their family. It was easy for them to say, no, I don't want to grow up next to drugs. No, I don't want to go in a gang or anything else. These kids are now executives. These kids are now working for the National Paintball Players League, who is also a big overgrown organization that sponsors a huge overgrown paintball league that's put in the middle of Huntington Beach, right on the beach. You would never expect paintball to be on the beach. We have oil spills all over the world, all over our oceans. We're playing paintball on the beach, right next to the ocean, and it attracts a lot of people. So to be able to say that this is not the right place to do it, what stopped Huntington Beach City Council from saying, no, you can't have a paintball field right on the beach? Not on concrete, I mean on sand. on actual sand with seagulls and everything else and other human beings and kids running around swimming.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to sum it up, please.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm just rambling on you. But please be able to grant him his wish of being able to give us what every paintballer wants in Simi Valley is our own field.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any more speakers? We're going to take a 5-minute break. Well, Solomon, how do you feel? How do you feel, Solomon?
Just a nasty habit there. Right, yeah. Oh, it's off, See, okay. Yeah. Good, yeah. I've probably got more tea in my house than coffee. My wife has, I quit trying to count the different kinds of teas. I just, there's this canister, this canister, this canister. And, but we have a pot of coffee on every morning. We got a lot of tea. Tough. Yeah, it's tough. A lot of places. I think I started drinking coffee. Stay awake early on as a kid when I go either to school or work or something. And sugar, little milk and stuff. And coffee milk, I think you used to call it. After I got married, my father-in-law introduced me to basic black coffee. Those.
Your father-in-law? How'd you get through the Marine Corps?
That was true. But I'm talking about hard knock coffee. The coffee pot you put on top of a fire when you're out camping. It's just an aluminum pot.
Sure.
You take out a handful of coffee, throw a hand or two in there, fill that thing full of water, and just let it boil. Yeah, and there ain't no cream.
I wish people could figure out whether they're for or against. They just get confused by the whole freaking thing. Yeah. I'm looking at I'm for that. No.
Yeah. Choose not to declare.
Here we go. The usual conflict here, isn't it?
Cinnamon's good too. Cinnamon's good. My grandmother used to boil cinnamon sticks. We have it.
Well,
we have the waitress staff.
Yeah, we can't go anywhere without them.
I know Robert was in the bathroom.
I think we can go. Mike was out there trying to make some money today.
Well, yeah. Establish credibility immediately, right?
Well, it was intelligent, but incredible.
Also, yeah.
I find it fascinating people to speak to that have not eaten Drew back.
Right.
We got the fire screen. Let it go and turn it off.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give some serious consideration to reconvening.
Today, they have some sort of live fire out there almost every year.
And then it's a race to shoot.
Kim, are we missing your cohort there? Is he coming back? Here he is. Back on the record, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Nischwander, for the appellant.
Okay, this really should not take very long. I'll try to be brief. I did want to raise some rebuttal points to things that were said here this afternoon. First and foremost, I want to make a point to say that the people who spoke here today are not the only families in opposition to this project. You heard from the Waters family, the Riddles, the Plater family, Mr. Cusimano's family, as well as Mr. Gray and others. I wanted to point out that the Frys aren't able to be here today. They have property directly adjacent to this site. The Cruz family is very close by. The McCutcheon family, the Ramelkamp, Rose Lee's family, the Gomez family, the Jones family, and the Raffs. All these people have homes and farms in this area, and they are all opposed and actively involved in opposing this project. We do need to talk a little bit about some of the traffic issues. There was a point raised that, was it weekday traffic we were talking about, or weekend traffic? What was the issue here? It's irrelevant. Weekend, weekday, does not matter. The fact is that weekend or weekday, there's still a line of sight issue at Shekel and Broadway that is severe, where it was measured at 250 feet, and Caltrans is recommending 550 feet. If this project is going to go forward, that intersection should be improved. And since this is something that needs to be done by the applicant, that should be made a condition of approval. The lack of a left turn pocket at Shekel and Grimes is also something that should be a condition of this project if it moves forward. The guy, as Mr. Plater was telling you, the guy down the street, trying to get a permit to improve his property and was required to put in a deceleration and an acceleration lane along his property. Certainly, asking that these two improvements be made would be reasonable. There was a comment by Mr. Forster who said that it was talking about traffic issues and turning from Shekel to Broadway and Shekel to Grimes. And he said that at the planning director hearing, some of the neighbors said, well, just move your project 200 yards and it would be just fine. We were there. I was there. That's not how we remember it. We remember it very, very differently. We were trying to find a way to make this work, to make everyone come out of it as the typical win-win concept. We couldn't come to a solution. Throwing on the table, well, let's try to move it. Let's see if that works. That's all we were doing. We were talking. It didn't come out well. And no one ever said, well, we're just going to walk away from the objections, from our objections to this project simply if you move the project site by 200 yards or even a half a mile. That's not what happened. The Egg City traffic has been brought up a couple of times. That when Egg City was there, there was a lot of traffic at that time. I got to remind you, that was 40 years ago. There was a huge difference in the traffic in the Moore Park Summit area 40 years ago and now. There just wasn't the same number of vehicles coming through there. And certainly 23 wasn't the arterial it has now become. Dust is one of the worst things that's going to happen because of this project. And I think that's why the applicant and his consultants have focused so heavily on the demolition aspect of it. Demolition is a short-term thing. It's 2, 3, 4 weeks. It's going to then be trucked off-site up to one of the mines. That's not our issue. Our issue is once you take that 8 acres of paved surface off, that dust will be blowing directly onto the crops on the Waters property, the Plater property, the Cusimano property. There are a lot of people who will be affected by this. Mr. Forster stood here and said, in response to a question, what will you be doing 5 days a week? And he says, well, we might go up there now and then and clean our equipment, make sure things are ready for the weekend, but we're not going to be there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. There's a condition that says that you're supposed to maintain the property during construction. It does not say anything about water truck use 5 days a week. If you read the condition 55, and it's 55 sub D, it says fugitive dust throughout the construction site must be maintained. And it has to be water trucks 3 times a day, or unless it rains, et cetera, et cetera. But it talks specifically about construction impacts, not about the 5 days a week where my neighbors are going to have to suffer through wind and sand blowing off that site into their young lemon orchards and into their row crops. Read 55. It does not say 5 days a week, 3 times a day. It does not. Most of the discussion from the applicant and his consultants, again, talking about what's going to happen and how they're going to maintain the site. It has to do with the demolition impacts. The one thing we did hear today that was new was, well, we'll hydroseed the site, or we'll make sure that some kind of grass grows. That's not a condition. If it goes forward, it must be a condition, along with water truck use 5 days a week when they're not there, or actually 7 days a week, 3 times a day, no matter what. Fire. I can't tell from the staff report of the project application whether there will be electricity on site. I thought there was not going to be electricity on site. Now I hear there's a generator, and now I hear for the first time that there's going to be vending machines. Vending machines require electricity. So you have electricity on site. You have no water on site. You have no hydrant next to the property. And now we're going to bring in massive amounts of fuel. We're going to bring in wooden buildings, big wooden spools, all sorts of interesting things to play on, but it's fuel. It's not that they're going to spontaneously combust, but you have electricity now, and you have fuel, or, worst case scenario, a fire starts coming through, and you've got a huge amount of things that will burn, and no one's around to report it or to put it out. Of course, the last thing I need to talk about, and probably the most important, is the compatibility issue. I heard from a lot of people who are very passionate about paintball. We all like paintball, apparently. Everybody I've talked to in the past few weeks has said, wow, it's fun. I don't think that's the issue here today. Everybody loves paintball. We don't want it next to this very precious agricultural resource that we've cultivated in the Somas area for the past 100 years. So, of all the locations listed by one of the hobbyists, one of the paintball guys, they talked about, well, here's where they all are. There's one out here, it's by cattle, and one out here, it's by a wildlife preserve, and one out here, it's by an animal shelter. And clearly that means they're compatible. Oh, except for one, it was by a church. And he specifically mentioned fields of fire, which I happen to know that facility because I represent the owner of the land, and they were shut down because of the church. The church told them they couldn't do it anymore, and they left. The fields of fire is gone. So of all the ones that they mentioned, none of them are in a residential neighborhood. They talked about being by cattle, and as far as I know, cattle do not stop growing if you blow dust on them. But if you blow dust on lemon trees or on blueberries, they will stop growing. And we can't assume that because it's okay next to an animal shelter, it's okay next to someone's home and their orchards and their row crops. This is, as you heard from the neighbors who came up here one after the other and tried to explain, this is just not the right place for this. All of the people who spoke in support of Mr. Forster's operation were paintball hobbyists. They do not live here in the Somas area or the Moore Park area. They do not own homes here. They do not own property here. They do not farm here. They don't have a concept of what this impact will be to put a recreational use, an amusement park, next to a farming community. One speaker mentioned that you wouldn't put a paintball facility in Compton because it's not compatible. But why is it compatible if you thereafter put one here in the Somas neighborhood, next to the families of the Frys and the Rafts and the McCutcheons and the Cruises? I don't understand if there's that much of a difference. The staff report, in many respects, covered some of the issues we're talking about, but in regards to the dust, it was inadequate to explain why it's okay to have the concrete lifted up and then have 8 acres of exposed dirt blowing into my client's property without any mitigation. 55 does not provide mitigation. So traffic issues, somebody's going to get killed. Those are nasty little traffic areas. I know 2 of the commissioners said area intersection. There's not at C50 there's trucks coming, and there's people at Hardwood facility with trucks slow down. It's just okay to go someplace better here and wait. If I hit answer them, we're on with your
questions. We hope to give you
traffic out. Weissner, he did site left county district this area have a 20 impact that got improve more efficient while sure that in that proper demolition activities event on the site on APTC C5 opinions and I can go representative here well the position is and of the paintball park east to the east that back owner can't or if it's property owner the legal property have this and portion of property and that should
thank you ma'am. Rose for staff.
I hope de novo. It's a new. I give you a insight made on 3 offenders concerned about as to give you a thinking because I know that the county the agri and I the issue can have open for its open is on not state land. He right and very informally ever between the Agos Henry site and walk joints and we went back and had moved on to our work land. Even though it's your own that condition there was a benefit here is to contact to shut so but inside your and your own wanted to let issue dearly. I mean the county's project to the cool he is at the county that they have and they sent us also a leash she does condition a house and I'm not may talk activity condition in addition of activity less emissions control her awful district that were played all have subset of 50 you have to go to the board you control have to so it sounds issue in community is just and the orchards are allowed to exempt they don't need them exempt of signal supply and the open only lot project so we all the count this by the plant health department management protect your control and APE has not lightly much so decision we call the other county there you issues and with no with the road issues that came, but the act had a paintball. I also find out all the what can paintball. So we long and discussion came to my decision what I just all of that when I have to a decision balance needs the agriculture there has balance. To you and to address questions vendor check with them and the ability itself by the invite and run all sorts of certain lunch over that. I do want to hear how many questions you have. Stratton is controlled. Closed by in front of vision. Already noted. Approve education section 1. The decision taking a stationary my part. You may oppose and limit necessary all actions purpose and it's very carried interest into what ability 50 being in it modified to if that is approved or denied. Also, actually about the you here.
to slightly for planning decisions that are and again 20 for scope hearing. Many people really the first in 7 point you either or approve appeal the first thing. Turning to that was 2. The recommend is 1 this hearing included all of you and I'm going to see basically the decision before itself. Also has different people your decision scale and paperwork have to be out for you at this. I don't need what stated addition that if approved that has to have fact associated to paying there is a to just is for a month to those that are R7. Decision, answer, appeal, and deceive. Voting probably better any discussion better for your body and not head on your members.
Without hearing, discuss them. Go first.
Well, Yard, executive from years. First time, so one day I was just curious. Did it get 2022? I don't know if there's something
It's okay for entitlement decision to make.
Okay, for as I've seen years, when middle of a create the last supervisory and processing permitted use. Where we start, my opinion, been a cemetery, but it's now like a Dorado Valley. Here we are. And talent, my question, be concerned with dust responsible. The next will come in there. We find conditions with it, be a little more bead. So patient issues, but at the same as rate comes up, expose allow filter issue. The water which grow. C, we have that's something they can handle. Think about issue of landscaping, though they're done. We're all sent out there. It's strictly, I realize response time, above teenage, county count that. Health suggestions, items within the manner. I know that we all have 1 hour per age. The traffic, who'd like it of the day. It can be, but also 20 years rates of the but flowing traffic. We don't agree with the element, the spin checkle, some is already that intersection. Compared to what the commission, I've very spoken.
I guess odd area to have a paint operation agriculture that located there'd be bench traps and people go to kinds of they go and the general what's the happen by and I see here applicant see it to these rules to that if he wants it and all that he's not going so imagine he doesn't or there is drainage some or whatever from the and say that does not make
the issue that is from traffic companion and potential danger. Traffic issue is Air Western is a traffic volume of vehicles. Traffic and obviously in scenario two with the same I think is that the world wide between 9.4 per 3 or 8.30. I don't think it's going to cloud operations for wasn't clear. I sense anything is profitable. Wishes of the property and open valuation does racial unowning came up that I kind of just the others in those part of the insurance that he present some sort of my issue if there's as a he spoke to and I would like here rather than since he stated he is keeping far for the if it's in after concrete is not solved water and it takes roots that the issue later alluded to I think it's the other side. It's not defined and being it's here control. And that question about buddy removing increase period and consume an obvious issue, but there'll be issues though. How is going to comply as break a jackhammer? Now you have a patient during that. I found the condition that's allowed. It has to be utilizing the concrete that whether low never find address understand there are 6 or whatever to remove concrete forward would assume applicant. I don't know the code enforcement wrote and some of the we might have, and I'll follow up. Sign indicated for those still more get there. I think that is this issue. Coming on can you cut across any I define it minimum that's around that the 20 words that where you're at and how to modify it communicating the word incumbent offense and get a bunch of hospital problems or character on
First night in battle, I'm sorry, that is why zoning is and they said about just trying into these social. Primarily, I need to all day security part. I wouldn't around my what have stress problems with and stand for work the code. Zoning is, I'm assuming we're going to have to allow this not to put into there's no raising the can more pro. I don't do a ration. It is high and under motion.
I'd like to move up to stat action 20 and 24 of the certified plan based off the nation statistics and with the directing with native vet and want to make that agree.
Separate mode to issue decision. How do we could do it? I think could do basically the action secured the approval of you. 2 separate will move to the way. As far as right now in the Fort Lane County event, it takes to affect 3 positive.
Affected because it said the C bands.
2 de novo. Then you'll come to decision.
That motion.
No. Sure, what? I don't have you have. Thank you very much.
We adjourn. That's right, Your Honor. It's